Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Minato inheritance unlocked by Kurama. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by KUROAKUMA025, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, the yellow flash of hidden leaf, the sole reason the third great shinobi war ended, was feeling fear. Raw primal fear. Reason? A mistake he made. An honest mistake, but a grievous mistake, nonetheless. What did he do, you ask? He had committed infidelity. Infidelity on his beloved wife, Kushina Uzumaki. It wasn't his fault, honest. He had just been so overjoyed at the news he was going to be a father that he had drunk himself stupid in a public bar, no less. Things have spiraled down from there. He didn't know how it happened, but he found himself with a naked woman the morning prior. In all honesty, he barely remembered bits and pieces. Who initiated it, he didn't know. He had been just so drunk. All the infidelity that he had committed brought huge guilt on his being, almost threatening to overwhelm him. It wasn't the reason he was feeling such fear. Nay, it was the news he had just received from the woman who was seated in front of him right now. The same woman he had committed infidelity with a month ago. All things considered, the woman was beautiful. Certainly not as much as his fiery wife, in his opinion, but beautiful nonetheless. Soft round face framed by beautiful ebony tresses. Lovely onyx eyes on that pale face of hers. A slim but moderately curvaceous figure. Yes, she was beautiful. But what made her beauty truly shine was her nature. She was one of the gentlest women he had ever met. Even now, in an attempt to make him calm down, she was softly smiling at him. Please, calm down, Lord Hokage. There is no need to panic. Odd. Even her voice was so soft, so soothing. But he couldn't. He just couldn't calm down. How can I calm down after what you have just told me? It's going to dester. Please, Lord Hokage, she raised a hand placidly. Calm down. Nothing is going to be destroyed. I am not here to ruin your life or anything, Lord Hokage. What? Did he hear that right? Why, you aren't? A frown crossed her soft features. Of course not. Why would I do that? You're a great man, Lord Hokage. You're a good leader and an even better person. I am sure you are a wonderful husband to your wife too, considering how you cried that morning after realizing what you've done. Not one of his best moments, but yes, he had cried after realizing what he had done. And it wasn't the only time he had cried after that. He couldn't tell Kushina what he had done. He was sure she would forgive him, she was truly kind like that, but not before she thrashed his ass in the most brutal of ways. But he just couldn't bring himself to do that. He knew she would be devastated at hearing that initially, just the thought of her in pain brought an ache to his heart. So, he just couldn't. For himself as much as for herself, he told himself. Of course, Kushina had noticed something was wrong with him. Comforting him every time he felt down without even knowing the reason. Truly, he felt unworthy of her now. I am not sure about the husband part anymore, he muttered bitterly. She flashed him a comforting smile. Lord Hokage, please don't beat yourself over it. It was an honest mistake on both of our parts. You were drunk and I too was drunk. Neither of us could have anticipated what would happen after we got drunk. Please, stop beating yourself over it, it isn't healthy for you. Odd, he felt pathetic. Being comforted for the second time by the woman he had committed infidelity with was just so humiliating. She had also done the same thing when he was crying that morning. Emotions riding an all-time high, he just snapped. What do you want then? Surely you want something. If it wasn't like that, you wouldn't have come here in the first place. Full lips pursed in a straight line. You're right. I do want something. Ha! There it was. What do you want? Can I keep this child? Eh? A sound of utter disbelief left him. He blinked several times and parroted her words dumbly. You want to keep this child? Yes, full lips quirked back up in a gentle smile, and she nodded. I want to keep this child. That's it. That is all you want. Was she joking? Surely she was. It couldn't be just that simple. Yes, that is all I want. Her onyx eyes went down to her stomach and a tender look, much tender than anything he had seen, entered her eyes. I never had anything to call my own, Lord Hokage. I was an orphan of the Uchiha clan. I never knew the love of a parent and I don't particularly have any interest in pursuing some kind of romantic relationship. So even if this child is a mistake, I want to keep it. I want to raise him. I want to love him. I want to call him my own. Can I ask that of you, Lord Hokage? His throat felt dry. Faced with such an earnest plea, what else can he do except for accepting it? There was no deceit in her onyx eyes. No ulterior motive of any kind. Just a genuine desire to raise that child as her own. Nothing more, nothing else. That is all you want, really? Really, that is all I want. You don't even have to be there or do anything for him, rather, I would prefer it if you stayed away from him. I just want him as my own. I want to raise him all alone. Unless, a look of uncertainty came over her pale visage. You want me to abort? No. No, no, no. I can never ask you about that. Aborting a child. Denying the child to be born simply because they made a mistake. Unthinkable. Please, I cannot do that. No matter if it was a mistake or not, I can't deny the child the right to be born in this world. It would be wrong of us, downright cruel even. Oh, full lips parted in slight surprise at his vehement denial. A hopeful smile came on her face once the surprise wore off. So, can I keep the child? Of course you can, Minato nodded. He couldn't deny her request. Though, a frown crossed his face at remembering her previous words. You don't want me to do anything with him? Ah, yes, I would prefer that. It would be better for both of us. No one will ever know that he is yours if you never interacted with him by going out of your way, and this is purely a selfish reason of my own, but I want to raise him solely without anyone interfering with us. I do hope you can understand that. He did. No one will be able to make a connection between them if he never interacted with him. It would be good for both of their images from a political standpoint also, for him, infinitely so. But not seeing and interacting with his own flesh and blood brought a terrible pang to his heart. Even though it was a mistake, it was still his child. But he knew he couldn't deny this woman her sole request. How can he? She didn't ask for practically anything. Any other woman would have asked for anything, and he would have been forced to do that in order to save his image as well as marriage. But still I understand that, but can I ask you something? She nodded her head with a curious look etched on her face. You see, since I got married to Kushina, I always wanted a son. But I am going to have a daughter, not that I am unhappy about that. Gods no. I am immensely happy about that, but it's just you're going to have a son, aren't you? She nodded her head again. Even more curious where he was going with this. I know it's going to be extremely selfish of me, but can I please name him, at least? Consider it my first and final request as his father, please. Of course, Lord Hokage. She didn't even hesitate for a second before replying. A gentle smile formed on her face. How can I deny such a lovely request? What do you want to name him? Naruto. Such was his eagerness that he stammered over his own words. A faint flush rose on his cheeks as the woman in front of him giggled. Naruto. Maelstrom, correct? She tilted her head curiously. Yes, correct. It's a name taken from my sensei's book. I hope you don't mind. For the first time he had ever met her, a look of pure distaste appeared on her face. He didn't know she was even capable of it. I do hope you've not taken that name from Lord Jiraya's famous smut. Have you, Lord Hokage? No. No, 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 no. It's not from that, believe me. It's from wait, hold on. He reached for a drawer in his desk and opened it, shuffled some items aside, and pulled the thing he needed. He handed her the book. Here. I have taken the name from this book. It's sensei's work also, but it never got any recognition. The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. She arched an eyebrow in question at reading the title. Curiosity got the better of her, she opened the book and started reading it right then and there. Minato didn't say anything, letting the woman read it. After all, he was asking her to name their son after a character of a book written by his sensei. And, well, his sensei was famous or infamous, depending on which gender you asked, only for his smut, so he was content to let her read it and make her decision after that. She closed the book with a smile on her face. Color me surprised, but this is good. I never thought Lord Jiraiya was capable of writing something actually good. Can I keep this book, if you don't mind, Lord Hokage? No. I don't mind. I have read it countless times, so you can keep it. Well, it was true that he had read that book countless times, he didn't give it to her for simply that reason. No. He knew she was serious when she had said she wanted him to stay away from their son. That meant doing absolutely nothing for him. No birthdays, no nothing. No passing down of anything that will connect them to each other. So, while it was a fairly simple thing, he hoped this book would be passed down to his son. This book was close to his heart. Very close. So even if it was a very unseemly thing, he wanted something to give to his son. She would never suspect it, but he would have passed something down to his son. At least, he hoped his son would get it. On the matter of his son. So, about his name, I don't mind. She smiled warmly at that. Naruto. Naruto-cha. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? It does. Minato nodded his head in agreement. It would have sounded infinitely better to him if it would have been Naruto Uzumaki or Naruto Namikaze, but even this was fine. What was done, was done. He couldn't change it. He would accept it and live with the consequences of his action for the rest of his life, like he had done many times before. Abruptly, the Uchiha woman stood up from the seat opposite to him. Then, I will be going, Lord Hokage. What I came here for is done and I have a doctor's appointment in a few minutes. If you will please excuse me. She bowed her head and gave a small smile to him as she turned around and started walking away. Makara. He also stood up from his chair. Hearing her name being called, she turned around to face him and her onyx eyes widened at seeing him bent at the waist, bowing his head down in gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. What are you doing, Lord Hokage? A man of your stature shouldn't bow his head in front of commoners like us. She immediately stepped forward and placed both of her hands on his shoulders, forcing him to stand straight. Please, don't do that. It is very unbecoming of you. She chided him gently. He looked down at her face, she was a good head shorter than him. Slight tears were stinging at the corners of his eyes. I thank you. She shook her head. A gratitude-filled look came on her face. No. Thank you, Lord Hokage, for giving me something to call my own. Even if it was a mistake, I don't regret it. You should also stop beating yourself over this. Mistakes happen. You should know this better than anyone. Just accept it and move on. You have a wife waiting at your home who will worry herself if you continue to be like this. If not for yourself, then for her. After all, she is also pregnant, right? Yeah, she is. Then don't make her worry, alright? It will be very bad for her health. It can even lead to a miscarriage if you continue to be like this and make her worry. Think about your unborn daughter and your wife before you think of anything else, okay? She gently wiped the tears that rolled down his cheeks with her thumbs and stepped back with a comforting smile on her face. I will, thank you again for everything, Makara. This time, he didn't bow his head, instead, offered her a gratitude-filled smile. It's alright, Lord Hokage. Have a pleasant day. Offering another smile and with a bow of her head, she turned around and started walking away. He watched with a small smile as Makara walked away. He was sure, if he didn't meet Kushina and met her first, he would have fallen for her. Hard. She truly was the gentlest woman he had ever met. If she was the one who would be caring for their son, then he would truly turn in a wonderful man. At least, he can take solace in that. Even if he never saw his own son, at least, he knew he would be raised by this wonderful woman. Oh, and Lord Hokage, Makara paused in her step and turned to look at him. Ah, yes. How should I say this? A look of uncertainty came over her face. Since I was drunk, I don't seem to remember much about that night. But you were awful. Eh? I don't know much about intercourse since I was a virgin, but I don't think anyone ejaculates that fast, Lord Hokage. Personally, what I could remember of that night was just awful. Maybe you should talk to your wife about this. You know, she could be faking it all along to make you feel better. I think things like this should be discussed so that you can improve yourself, Lord Hokage. I see. She placed a delicate hand against her cheek and a truly worrying expression came over her face. I do hope my Naruto doesn't inherit this part of yours. I don't want my future daughter-in-law to feel such disappointment that I felt. Just stop, woman. Just stop. His manly pride that was all but destroyed aside. He was now fearing for how his son might turn out to be. My God. This woman knew absolutely no tact. She was as blunt as a hammer. She was brutally honest. He knew she was not trying to be mean or anything. No, he doubted this woman actually has a mean bone in her whole body. Looking at her face, she was just concerned about him. God. She really was the nicest and the most brutally honest woman he had ever met. Two things were for sure at this moment, his pride as a man was all but destroyed and he was never going to take his sensei's advice on this. Never. Ah, her eyes strayed to the wide window behind him and she glanced back at him. I must be going now, Lord Hokage. I am getting late for my appointment. Please excuse me. Go. Just go. Wonder what got him like that. She tilted her head in confusion as she saw Minato staring at the ground with a lifeless stare. She shrugged her shoulders and went on to attend her appointment. On that day, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, the yellow flash of Hidden Leaf, the man who ended the third great shinobi war single-handedly, cried. A lot. 7 years later, Makara hummed a nonsensical tune to herself as she worked in the kitchen. Swaying slightly to the tune she hummed. The soft sound of pitter-patter against the wooden flooring reached her ears and a smile lit up on her face. Immediately, she turned around. Welcome back, honey, did you have fun plow? Her baby boy stood before her, sniffing softly as he held a puppy close to his chest. Mariko isn't breathing. A tender look came in her eyes and she sunk down to her knees in front of him. A delicate hand cupped his pale cheek, very much like her own. Her thumb wiped his tears as he sniffed softly. Oh, sweetie, you knew this was going to happen when you took him in, don't you? He nodded his head against her hand. His teary sapphire eyes looked into her onyx eyes. But I didn't want him to go, Ma. I know, honey, nobody wants to lose things precious to them. She removed her hand from his face and poked his chest softly with a finger. It hurts here, doesn't it? He nodded and looked down at Raiko in his hands. Tears slowly falling onto his brown fur. A sad smile plucked at the corners of her mouth. It always does, dear. He sniffed softly as he looked back at her. Does it get better? does this pain go away? She nodded with a rueful look. Sometimes. How? You learn to move on, my dear Naruto. She replied as she ran a hand through his spiky golden blonde hair. How do I? He looked down at Raiko in his hands. Learn to move on, ma. She worked her fingers against his scalp in an attempt to provide him with some comfort. You do that step by step, honey. Step by step. What is the first step, ma? First, we bury him, Naruto. In our backyard. Yes, dear. She stood up and gave him a gentle smile. Come with me. She kept her hand in between his small shoulder blades and rubbed small circles as they walked towards their small backyard. Where do you want to bury him, Naruto? There, his teary eyes looked towards a small tree in the corner. It was his favorite spot. Wasn't that the place Raiko used as a toilet? She tried to remember what it was used for. Oh, well. In the end, she shrugged her shoulders, deeming it unnecessary. Okay, honey, we will bury him there. Come, I will help you. She ran through some hand seals and forced her chakra into the ground through her feet. The result? A small portion of the ground split apart in front of the tree. It was a simple technique taught to every ninja during her time, with a single, very morbid purpose, to give their comrades that have fallen an immediate burial if the retrieval of the body wasn't possible. And to set up a trap, but that was a secondary purpose. There, she gestured towards the square hole in the ground. Gently lower him in it, Naruto. Okay. He did as he was asked. Sinking down to his knees, he gently lowered Raiko in the hole. He ran his small hand through the fur. I will miss you, Raiko. He rubbed at his eyes as they started to feel itchy, wiping the tears away in the process unintentionally. She stood patiently, watching him petting the deceased canine for the final time. She didn't say a word, letting him take as much time as he needed. Once he stood up on his own, she flashed him a comforting smile and beckoned him closer to her. He ran towards her and hugged her across her legs. She ran through a slightly different set of hand seals and channeled chakra into the ground by her feet. The grave closed on itself, sealing itself shut, leaving no evidence of there being a hole in the ground moments prior. Her work done, she focused on Naruto again. His entire frame was trembling against her as he sobbed. Hooking her arms under his armpits, she hoisted him up in her hold. His small arms tightened around her shoulders, grabbing fistfuls of her clothing. Head buried in the crook of her neck. There, she gently rocked him in her hold, exactly as she had done when he was just a baby. Stop crying, honey. I already miss him. I know. She kissed the side of his head and rubbed his back. That's natural. We miss those dear to us, Naruto. It hurts, it does. She started walking back inside their house. The loss of a loved one always hurts, Naruto. If I forget about him, will the pain go away? Is that the next step? Well, that is a way of making the pain go away. That is not the right thing to do, dear. She slid the sliding paper door to their backyard shut and continued walking inside their house. You should never forget about your loved ones, rather, always keep them and the memories you have made with them close to your heart. As long as you keep that person in your heart, they will never truly die. They will continue to live within you that way. So Raiko is not dead. In a physical sense, yes. In a spiritual sense, no. He lives within you, Naruto. His memory lives with you. But perhaps, she tilted her head to look at his face. Yes, she was right. He wasn't getting what she was talking about. This was something a 6-year-old would find hard to comprehend. This would not do. Tell me, honey, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Raiko? He closed his eyes and a memory flashed in his mind. How Raiko always came running towards me while wagging his tail whenever I came back home. See, her lips quirked up in a small smile. He lives within your memory. Whenever you will think about him, he will always appear like that in your mind. In that sense, he never truly died, Naruto. He lives within you. Oh, she looked at his face and nodded to herself. He finally got it. Though, with a touch of concern, she noted how he was constantly rubbing at his eyes. Now while that action can be interpreted as him wiping his tears away, she knew it was not just that. There was a distinct look of irritation on his face that everybody but her would have missed. Something to look at after he calmed down. She stepped inside their room and slid the paper sliding door shut behind her. Few silent strides brought her to their bed. She settled against the headrest of the bed with Naruto in her hold. Now, for the next step, she settled her chin on his small shoulder and softly whispered. Let it all out, Naruto. Don't hold anything back. Cry as much as you want. Dude, she pulled him slightly away until they were face to face. You will not be allowed to cry again. Strong boys don't cry much and never make anyone cry. You're a strong boy, she tilted her head questioningly. Aren't you? Rubbing at his itchy eyes, he nodded. I am. Good, she kissed his forehead and pulled him closer in her embrace. Then let it all out, Kay. He didn't reply verbally to her and just buried his head in her shoulder. For a long time, they sat at the bed. She didn't know how long they stayed like that. It could have been seconds, minutes, or even an hour. Truthfully, it didn't matter to her. All that mattered to her was having him in her arms and comforting him. Easing him out of his sorrow. Eventually, his trembling stopped. His tears also stopped. Only occasional hiccups were all she heard from him. Her fingers haven't stopped threading soothingly in his spiky mop of golden blonde hair and she continued to rub his back. She hummed as he finally stopped. Feeling better, sweetie? Naruto nodded his head against her shoulder. A little, good. She smiled. She tilted her head to look at his face and a concerned frown came on her face at seeing him rub at his eyes again. Why are you rubbing your eyes so much, Naruto? Another rub. They feel really itchy, ma. Is that so? Full lips pursed in a straight line. She had an inkling where this was going. And she didn't like that thought. Removing him from her embrace, she settled him directly in front of her. Removing both of his hands away from his face, she cupped both of his cheeks to keep his face straight. Naturally, his eyes feeling extremely itchy, he squirmed in his position. She gently chided him. Honey, let me take a look. Keep calm for some moments. But ma. They're really itchy. I know, sweetie, but please, bear with me for some moments. Okay. She placed a chaste kiss on his forehead. Good boy. Now let's take a look at your eyes, okay? One look at his eyes confirmed her suspicion. His sapphire eyes were flickering between blue and red. A frown appeared on her delicate features. Well, this isn't good. Summith Yeo. Naruto yelped in pain and covered his eyes with both of his hands. Akira watched with a conflicted expression as her son unlocked their clan's prided bloodline. She supposed she should be happy, prideful even, at the fact her son unlocked their clan's famed bloodline. But she wasn't, not a single bit. Ma. Something is ouch. He yelped again in pain. His eyes were throbbing with pain now. I know, honey. The pain will go away any second now, stay strong. It's jetting, huh? A sound of confusion left him. The pain abruptly stopped, as his mother told him. It was like it was never there, to begin with. The itchiness he was feeling moments prior was also not there. Confused about what happened, he removed both of his hands away from his eyes. Slowly, he opened his eyes. His mother's beautiful face came into his vision. But something was different, he immediately noticed. There was a clarity in his vision there never was. So much so, if he so wished, he could have counted the number of her eyelashes without any effort. Looking around in wonder, he saw a mosquito flying nearby. The more he looked on, the more he became fascinated. He could see the small wings of the mosquito flapping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, his eyes widened in realization. He was able to count how many times the mosquito flapped its wings. Wide-eyed, he turned his gaze back to his mother. She was softly smiling at him like she always did, but there was a touch of amusement in her expression. Interesting, isn't it? His jaw slacked in shock. She hadn't said anything. Her lips had moved, certainly, but there was no sound, and yet he had perfectly understood what she wanted to say. He was able to read her lips. He didn't have the slightest of the clues at what was happening. But this is so awesome. With all the energy of a 6-year-old getting a new toy, he cheered and laughed with joy. All her personal feelings aside at her beloved son unlocking their famed bloodline, she just couldn't stop herself from getting affected by his infectious joy. Seeing the childlike wonder and joy on his face, she giggled. Her son was so cute. Ma. I don't know what is happening, but I can see everything. I know. I just read your lips. I know. I could even count the flaps of that mosquito's wings. How cool is that? It is very cool. I could even see the wrinkles on your face. Eh? Wrinkles? On mine? Oh really? She touched her own face in horror. Wrinkles? Preposterous. She was still very young, damn it. She took very good care of herself. He must be joking. Yes. There was absolutely no way there were wrinkles on her face. Looking at his grinning face. Oh, you cheeky boy. Come here. Ahahaha. I am sorry. Who got wrinkles, huh? Whom? I am so stop it. Ahahaha. My eye. Laughing, she let go of him. Stopping her tickling assault for now. His healthy pale face was flushed from laughing too much, matching his vibrant scarlet eyes. Now that she thought about it, his eyes were unusually bright. She had never seen such a brilliant shade of red before. All the fellow users of their famed bloodline she had met, they all had a rather dull shade of red. But his eyes were simply mesmerizing. There was a sort of purity to the Ma. Why am I suddenly seeing everything so much clearer? A soft smile played on her lips. That's because you have unlocked our clan's bloodline, sweetie. It is called the Sharingan. The Sharingan is often described as the eyes that reflect the heart. She understood why his Sharingan was so vibrant. Why they held a sort of purity to them. Why they were so mesmerizing. He tilted his head to the side in an adorable manner. Sherry what? A giggle escaped her. Sharingan, sweetie. He bobbed his head in understanding. Yes. Yes. Sharingan. What is it? It's the famed bloodline of our clan. Regarded as one of the 3 great Mujutsu in the world. It's special. There was a distinct look of conflict on her face as she finished. Oh, he tilted his head to the side and pointed a finger to himself. Am I special, then? Her lips quirked back up in a soft smile. Though, this time, her smile was filled with adoration. Yes, Naruto. You're very special. Ahaha. I am special. He rubbed his nape and his nose was turning a little red. She shook her head with a loving smile. Sheesh, her son was adorable. He was even more adorable when embarrassed, like now. He suddenly seemed to perk up at something. Say, Ma, do you have this Sharingan? I do, she nodded her head. Knowing what he will ask next, she channeled chakra into her eyes and they changed into the prided bloodline of their clan. Naturally, unlike her son, who had single Tomo in both of his newly awakened Sharingan, hers were fully matured, with 3 Tomo in both eyes. He stared at her Sharingan with wonder. Since his Sharingan was still active, he saw something in her Sharingan. Seeing his own reflection in her eyes, he noted a difference. Ma, why does your Sharingan have 3 coma-like things and my only one? Because my Sharingan is fully matured, honey, well your Sharingan just manifested. You first learned how to crawl first, right? You didn't start running right away, did you? His face scrunched up in confusion. I don't know, Ma. I don't remember. Right, she nodded her head in understanding. Kids don't remember something like that. It was her own fault at saying something like that. What I meant to say, sweetie, that you start as a child first, don't you? It takes time for one to grow up and become mature. That's the same thing with our Sharingan, it takes time to mature. Oh, so it was like that. He nodded in understanding. It will take time. That's okay, he wasn't in the hurry of anything. Although. What is this Sharon, huh? Was it just him or was the world suddenly spinning? His supervision was also back to normal on its own. And just why was he feeling so tired? Sleep sounded so good right now. Oh, yeah, sleep sounded just so good. Naruto. Reacting quickly, she caught him before he could fall off the bed. Positioning him in a resting position and setting his head down in her lap, she looked down at his face worriedly. Are you alright, sweetie? So tired, sleepy. Oh. He ran out of chakra. Given he only had average chakra reserves like her, he was bound to run off quickly. He was also 6 years old, his chakra reserves were even smaller at this point. She supposed it was a good thing she had at least made him unlock his chakra when he was younger, otherwise, he would have fainted the moment his Sharingan got activated. It's alright, sweetie, sleep for now. She gently ran her hand through his hair as he was already out. Looking down at his face, a frown crossed her features. She had hoped he would never awaken the Sharingan. She knew, now that he had awakened it, he would begin taking an interest in it. He was a curious child like that. And the more knowledgeable he would get about it, he would eventually want to become a shinobi. She didn't want that. The life of a shinobi was hard. Very hard. It was not for people with gentle hearts. People like her son were not suited for the life of killing, deception, among many other heinous things. That's why she had kept him away from shinobi-related things. She scarcely used any jutsu in front of him. Today was an exception and he was not particularly focused on her, so it was fine. Whenever he had caught her doing a jutsu, obviously, like any child of his age, he was fascinated, but other than that, he had not taken an interest in it. It just always remained as a minor fascination. Though she was also quick to change the topic and being a kid, his attention span was relatively less, so it wasn't that hard to divert his focus to other things. But now that he had taken an interest in the Sharingan, things would change. She knew, if he really wanted to become one, she wouldn't be able to deny him. She had never been able to deny him, she was wrapped around his little fingers like that. She just hoped he wouldn't hope to become one. But she already knew it was a fool's hope. Call it mother's intuition or whatever, she just knew her son would want to become one. Oh well, she would support him in whatever he wanted to do. In the end, all that mattered to her was he remained happy. And she was willing to do anything to keep him happy. She bent down a little, it was a little awkward given her position, but she managed to place a chaste kiss on his forehead. I love you so much, Naruto. The corner of his lips twitched upwards and he snuggled deeper in her lap. Love you too, Ma. Oh. She felt like squealing. Gosh, he was adorable. Why do I feel like I am forgetting something? Oh, well, if it really was that important, I would have remembered it. It's probably nothing. Shaking her head she reached for the bedside table, picking her unfinished book up and started reading to spend time away as Naruto slept. XXXXXXXXXX. Are you really alright, sweetie? Yes, Ma, I am fine. Are you sure? Chakra exhaustion for the first time can be quite intense. I do feel a bit sluggish, but I am fine. That's normal. If you're fine with that, then I suppose it's alright. By the way, Ma, which restaurant are we going to today? Where do you want to go? That ramen stand we went to last week, what was its name, Ma? You mean Ichiraku Ramen? Yes, that one. Let's go there. I really like their ramen. Sure, I don't mind. Their ramen was really good. Yeah, it was. They made quite a pair as they walked through the busy streets of their village. Since it was very rare for an Uchiha to be seen in any other color other than navy blue or black, they attracted quite some attention. Her dear son never liked those colors, considering them to be too gloomy, his words not hers. Something, she was inclined to agree after having him. They really were gloomy. He, like his personality, liked vibrant colors. Orange was his favorite. He considered the color to be a very cheery and happy color, again, his words not hers. And yet again, she was inclined to agree with him on that. When used in moderation, orange really was a good color. While he was dressed in the usual high-collared t-shirts that were normal in the Uchiha clan, the color was different. The t-shirt was of a burnt orange color with white shorts and sandals. Likewise, since having him, her life also had become more colorful, to say the least. Wearing a white sundress that ended on her calves, and like him, she also wore sandals, but heeled ones. Though both of them did have something in common, both have the Uchiha crest proudly stitched on the back of their clothes like every other Uchiha. While her gentle beauty did turn a few heads, it was her son who attracted almost everyone's attention at least once. Since, well, he was the only blonde Uchiha in the entire clan, in addition to having bright sapphire eyes instead of their common onyx eyes. Yeah, he cut quite an interesting picture. His behavior was also something of an anomaly to others. He didn't act like a typical Uchiha. Every Uchiha, for some strange reason, did have some type of arrogance right from their childhood. Certainly, she was no different. Even she was quite cocky when she was his age. Things happened and she changed. Like anyone else, she matured, you could say. Turning into what she was today. Perhaps it was her own personality that affected her son. No, she was sure it was her personality that had affected her son. Regardless, she was thankful he was different from the typical Uchiha. She didn't want a son who is arrogant, had a proper resting bitch face of his own all the time, and sometimes, replied only in single syllables. A shudder went through her body. Oh, yeah. She definitely didn't want a typical Uchiha as a child. More than enough people have wondered if he was actually adopted, though one look at his face quelled any doubt anyone ever had. Except for the spiky golden blonde hair and sapphire eyes, he was practically a mini-me of hers. Same soft round face, same round eye shape, and the same healthy pale skin. If she made him wear a wig and eye contact lenses that resembled her own eyes and hair, he would not be considered a male anymore. He had her gentle beauty to him, after all. Perhaps she should try that. It would certainly make for a fun memory. Get some pictures too, so she will be able to show that to her future daughter-in-law and embarrass her son. Now that definitely sounded like an idea. Honey. Yes, Ma. We're going to make a detour today. I have some things I have to buy. Oh, okay. Why did that sentence fill him with dread? What was she going to buy? And why does he get the feeling that he was not going to like it? At all. But boy. She beamed brightly at him. Ah. Well, it couldn't be that bad, right? His mother was beaming, so surely it couldn't be that bad, right? Right, so then why was he getting this feeling that he was going to get roped into something really embarrassing? But after having dinner, of course. She added as an afterthought, thinking of all the different kinds of looks that will suit him. Okay. Mind easily distracted by the thoughts of dinner, Naruto remained blissfully unaware of all the embarrassment he was going to suffer in the near future. Turns out, the important thing she forgot about was the dinner she was making. Everything she was making was either overcooked or she did not start cooking them at all. So, here they were now, going to eat dinner out. It didn't take them too long in reaching the bustling ramen stand. Pushing aside the flaps hanging at the entrance, the mother-son duo entered the ramen stand. Thankfully for both of them, 2 stools at the corner were unoccupied at the moment. Smiling at each other at their luck, both of them quickly got seated on the seats. Good evening. Welcome to the Ichiro. Well, if it isn't the cute blonde from last week. How are you doing, Blondie? A petite 12-year-old bubbly brunette greeted them, or, well, her son in particular. I am doing good, thank you for asking, big sis. How are you? Manners were something she was sure to teach him. No child of hers will be impolite or without manners, for that matter. Oh, I am good, the daughter of the stand's owner replied with an airy wave of her hand. She grinned as she planted an enclosed fist on her hip. So, what can I get you today, cutie? While she did look forward to the day she would get a daughter-in-law, she wasn't in any particular hurry as of now. She saw fit to remind this bubbly, flirty girl she was also here. Ahem. As if realizing for the first time she was here, the brunette's grin faltered and she immediately bowed her head, whether it was in an apology or greeting or a mixture of two, only she knew. I am so sorry. I didn't realize you were there, ma'am. Please, do forgive me. Ah, she placed a dainty hand against her cheek, giving a small placid smile. There's nothing to be sorry about, it's alright. My dear son is very cute, I don't blame you for forgetting me. Though, I would prefer it if you didn't try to flirt with him until he is of proper age. The brunette girl in front of her colored to the very roots of her hair. In front of such a blunt response, she sputtered. I wasn't flirting with him. Abruptly, the sound of rambunctious laughter rang from behind the brunette. Ha 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 ha. See, I have told you to not go after every cute boy you see, AM. Now you just got told by the young lad's mother. Utterly embarrassed, AM whined piteously, hiding her flushed face in her hands. Day-eyed. The owner of the stand came behind AM and affectionately tousled her brunette locks. The man gave both of them a pleasant welcoming smile he is known for. Do forgive my lass here. She, like most other girls her age, is interested in cute young boys. And your young lad is a very cute boy, Lady Che. Please, Makara returned the pleasant smile. There is no need for that. Girls and boys her age do start to take interest in the opposite gender, so there is nothing wrong about that. And please, don't be so formal with me, Mr. Tucci, I am not someone of very high stature in our clan, so you can just address me by my name. Oh, Tucci blinked in surprise at the woman's attitude. He just couldn't stop himself from asking. Are you really sure you are from the Uchiha clan? Bell-like pleasant laughter emerged from Makara. Hiding her smile behind her open palm, she nodded. I can assure you, Mr. Tucci, my son and I are from the Uchiha clan. At the mention of her son, his eyes went towards the blonde boy sitting beside her. They lit up in remembrance at the sight of him. You're Naruto, correct, boy? Naruto blinked in surprise, but nodded his head, nonetheless. Ah. Yes. My name is Naruto. Naruto Uchiha. How do you know my name, Mr. Tucci? Oh, AM here, tousling her hair once more, which earned him an annoyed huff from his daughter. Did tell me about you. Particularly how a cute blonde Uchiha came last week. Since there aren't many or any, for that matter blondes in the Uchiha clan, I was able to remember it. Naruto bobbed his head in understanding. He had never met any Uchiha with blonde hair, so he got why people found him hard to forget. You didn't have to tell him that. Stupid dad. AM grumbled under her breath. Tucci laughed jovially, patting her head affectionately. It's alright, AM. Turning towards the mother and son duo, he gave them a wide smile. So what can I get you two? Oh, me first. Naruto raised his hand excitedly. Makara giggled beside him and nodded. Sure, you can go ahead, honey. Tucci also laughed at the blonde's excitable behavior and pulled a notepad out from his apron's pocket. Go ahead, boy. What would you like? One large bowl of miso ramen with braised pork. Oh, and add extra pork, extra narutomaki, you know what, add extra everything. Tucci laughed as he noted down the order. Amusement twinkled in his eyes as he looked at the blonde boy. Are you sure you could eat everything, boy? I can eat everything, thank you very much. Naruto crossed his arms in front of his small chest with a huff. Tucci laughed at his reply. The kid really was cute. And so very cheeky. He could understand why AM took an instant liking to him. Alright, one order of miso ramen with extra everything. What would you like to have, Mrs. Uchiha? Ms. Uchiha, Mr. Tucci. I am not married. Makara corrected him politely. Oh. Do forgive me, Ms. Uchiha. What would you like to have? While he was surprised, he let the matter pass quickly. It simply wasn't his place to ask anything. And both the mother and son looked happy with each other and that was all he cared for, really. Where did the boy come from, who cares? But he knew that much that he really was her son, the similarities between them was as clear as day. Makara smiled softly at the older man. Glad he did not dig in her personal matters like many others. I would like the same thing as my son, but don't add the pork in it, Mr. Tucci. 2 large bowls of miso ramen. One with extra everything and no braised pork in the other. Alright, jotting down the order, he looked at the duo with a pleasant smile. The order will be with you too shortly, please enjoy your stay until then. We will. Thank you Mr. Tucci. Makara gave a pleasant smile of her own in return. The ramen stand owner nodded and patted his daughter's head to get her attention. And you, young lady, get to attending other orders. You can flirt with him later. As I said. I wasn't flirting with him. Stupid dad. AM stomped her foot in indignation. Tucci laughed heartily and got back to making dinner. Just get to it, AM. AM fed and looked at the cute blonde with a grin. See you later, cutie I mean Naruto. She was quick to change unless she suffered more teasing from her stupid dad. Bye-bye big sis. Naruto cheerfully waved. AM couldn't help herself. Leaning over the counter, she pinched the strange Uchiha's cheeks. Gushing, all the while. Oh. You're just so cute. Forgotten again, Makara saw fit to remind the bubbly girl she was still here. Ahem. Blushing again, AM let go of a whining Naruto's cheeks, bowed her head, and bolted away from there. Makara giggled at the girl's behavior. They are nice, aren't they, ma? She turned her head to look at her son, who was nursing his reddened cheeks but had a smile on his face. She nodded her head with a gentle smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "They are, sweetie." He tilted his head with an inquisitive look on his face. "Can we come here again?" She reached out with her hand to pet his head. "Of course we can." "Dude," she started poking at his sides with a finger. "Do eat in moderation, we don't want you to get fat now, do we?" He started squirming in his seat and before long, he was laughing. "Stop, Ma. Ahahaha. That tickles. Ahahaha. Stop." They received some strange looks from people around them at how the two Uchiha were acting, but they ignored them easily. Used to the attention they get. Of course, some looks were less than pleasant. Those of mistrust or downright hate aimed at the duo. But those looks were only from a few. Those were the people who blamed the Uchiha clan for initiating the Nine Tails attack 6 years ago. Though the looks of mistrust and hate were increasing day by day, they both weren't really bothered by them. Happy as they were just being with the other. 2 large bowls of ramen were placed in front of them. Directing their attention away from each other to the ramen placed in front of them. "My, that was quick." Makara looked at the ramen bowl in surprise. Duchi laughed. "Of course. We pride ourselves on the taste and our quick service. Nothing less than our full effort is acceptable." "I see." Full lips quirked up in a small smile. "Well, dig in before it gets cold. And I have added extra everything like you asked, boy." "Thank you, Mr. Tucci." Tucci nodded his head with a wide smile and went on to continue his work. Makara looked at Naruto and smiled softly. "Shall we?" Naruto grinned and bobbed his head eagerly. He was very hungry, after all. Chakra exhaustion can do that to you. Both of them closed their eyes and clapped their hands in prayer. "Thank you for the food." Once done with their prayer, both of them broke their chopsticks apart and dug into their meals. Of course, it was done with proper etiquette she had taught him. No spillage of anything and with proper, slow bites, chewing everything with his mouth closed and not swallowing it straight. She was raising a child, after all, not some savage. A child without proper etiquette represented the lack of ability of the parent. And if there was one thing she was going to absolutely excel in, it was being a parent. Odds damn it, she was going to turn him into a proper man. And no one. Absolutely no one can stop her. In sync, both of them raised the bowl to their mouths and drank the flavorful broth. Placing the bowl back on the counter, both heaved a satisfying sigh. Clapping their hands back together in prayer. "Thank you for the delicious meal." Naruto looked at his mother with a toothy grin. "That was so good, Ma." She nodded with a small grin of her own. It really was good. Everything about the meal was perfect. The consistency of the broth, the thickness of the noodle, the freshness of the vegetables and meat. Everything was perfectly cooked and spiced. She really wouldn't mind eating here on a weekly basis. And looking at the face of her son, he was of the same mind as hers. Though, he might not agree on the weekly basis part. And she would be correct. "Let's come here every day, Ma." "Naruto," she patted his head and gently chided him. "What did I say about moderation? Everything is good only in a limit. If you overdo it, it will be bad for your health. Understand?" Though he pouted, he nodded his head, nonetheless. "Okay." She ruffled his hair affectionately. "Good boy. I do hope the meal was to both of your likings." They both turned towards the sound of the stand's owner and saw him standing behind the counter with the same smile he was famous for. "Ah. Yes. It was very delicious, Mr. Tucci. I doubt we would ever have ramen that good anywhere else." Naruto bobbed his head in agreement to his mother's words. "It was super good, Mr. Tucci." A rambunctious laugh burst out of the ramen stand owner. "I am glad you liked it, boy." Retrieving the purse from her side pocket, Makara looked up at the middle-aged man inquisitively. "How much is it for the meal, Mr. Tucci?" The man waved his hand in dismissal. "There's no need, Ms. Uchiha. Consider it on the house today." I beg your pardon." She blinked in shock. Another laugh burst out of him. "As I said, there's no need to pay for the meal today, Ms. Uchiha. I get the feeling the boy here is going to be a regular in the future. And we rarely get to have an Uchiha as our customer. Consider it as an investment if you will." Ha ha ha. She knew well enough the man was just jesting if his jovial laugh already wasn't an indicator enough. She supposed this particular hospitality of his is what made the stall so famous. Despite this being the second time visiting the stall in her entire life, she was already sold due to the hospitality. And food. Don't forget about the food. Still, she insisted. "I am sorry, Mr. Tucci, but I can't take advantage of your generosity like this in my good conscience. After all, it takes time and effort to make food, you shouldn't give it out for free, Mr. Tucci. People will start coming in hopes to get food for free if they saw you giving it away like that, eh?" Tucci's jaw slackened slightly. Was this woman scolding him? What the hell? Makara was still far from finished. "And you should also consider your age, Mr. Tucci. You're not getting any younger and you have a daughter to look after. If you keep giving away food for free like that, how will you save up for her future? Think about your coming old age and your daughter before giving away food for free like that. Do you understand, Mr. Tucci? Yeah, good. So how much is it, Mr. Tucci? 1900 rim. Here. Hope you have a pleasant day, Mr. Tucci. Bye-bye, Mr. Tucci. We will be coming again. Oh. Just go. Both mother and son tilted their heads with confusion as they saw Tucci staring at the ground with a lifeless stare. Wonder what got him like that. They both looked at each other and shrugged. Going on their own merry way. As cutie I mean Naruto. Gone, died, what happened to you? AM shrieked when she saw the state her father was in. Old save money for AM. Add. Old I am old. Add. Old age death. Odd. On that day, Tucci, the owner of the Ichiraku ramen, the genius businessman, the master chef, cried. A lot. Narumi Uzumaki had enough. Ever since she had been kicked out of the orphanage on her last birthday, she had been forced to live on the streets. Still. She survived on her own. She found food. Found shelter. And she lived. Food was relatively simple to find. Restaurants were her main source of food. They were the ones who threw most food away. So it was a good source for her. Every night, when the restaurants closed down, she rummaged through the trash. She didn't dare to step a foot around the restaurants in daylight. The last time she did, she had been pelted by stones. Stones hurt. So, only at night. Finding shelter was a difficult thing. She had to change her location every 3 days, or the villagers may find her if she lingered at the same location too long. The last time they did, she had been pelted by stones. Stones really hurt. She had tried to live in the forest, but let's just say, a forest is a dangerous place. The animals there get feral as soon as she gets near them, so yeah, the forest is a big no-no. All things considered, her life was normal. Well, as normal as a homeless child's life can be, if you just ignored the constant sneers, jeers, taunts, and the occasional pelting she received from everyone in the village on a daily basis. Oh, and did she tell you about a gigantic fox with 9 tails in her gut? Yeah, there is that too. Vixen, brat. The deep booming feminine voice reverberated in her mind. Vixen, everyone. Not a fox, Vixen. Her bad. So as you can see, her life was relatively simple. Simple in the most utterly fucked up way, but simple, nonetheless. So now you may be wondering, what did she have enough of? Why, it would be of the sneers, jeers, and taunts of course. Well, she had learned to keep an aloof look on her face, as to show nothing bothered her. They did bother her. They bothered her more than she could express in words. They were harsh words. Very harsh words. They hurt. So much. But she knew, if she showed weakness in front of them, they would pounce on that weakness. Like hungry wolves on a wounded animal. They would try to inflict more pain on her, whether it be emotionally or physically, it didn't matter to them. As long as she was in pain, they would be happy. And she refused to give them any sort of happiness or satisfaction. She refused everything. She was a strong girl. So she refused to show weakness. But sometimes, even the strong breaks. Everyone had a breaking point. Today was hers. Months of verbal and physical abuse got to her today. So, she ran. She ran away from everything. Evading all the stares. Unhearing all the taunts. She ran. Not looking up. She ran. Bitter tears stung at the corner of her eyes, but she ran. Not acknowledging anything in her way, she ran. Her stomach growled in hunger, but she still ran. She ran and ran and ran. Just to get away from everything. To find a safe place for tonight. She ran. She ran until she tripped. A single stone in her way, or perhaps someone had thrown it purposefully in her way, regardless, she tripped. Closing her eyes, she braced herself for her face to meet the cold, hard asphalt. Instead, her face didn't collide with the asphalt, it collided with someone's back. Even while falling, dread gripped her heart. This was even worse. She would have preferred the pain, but not this. There was a high-pitched yelp that distinctively sounded like the voice of a boy of her age to her, before they both fell on the cold, hard ground. She fell on top of the boy, and the boy fell on the ground face first, more specifically. Naruto. Dazed as she was, she scarcely heard the worried feminine shout. It wasn't until the body beneath her started to move, she started panicking. She jerked away from the body beneath her, skittering back on her butt rapidly. Pain flared in her knee and she glanced at her knee with a wince. Her right knee was scraped. Badly. Blood oozed from the wound and dripped to the ground. Glancing at the rock which had tripped her, one look at its bloody surface confirmed how she got such an injury just from falling. Immediately, she tried to stand to get away from here as quickly as possible. The pain stopped her dead in her tracks. In pain, she whined. "Furball, please, heal me. It hurts." "Not now, brat. Look around you." The deep feminine voice hissed in her mind. Narumi did look around with teary eyes. And immediately, she understood why her request was denied. Every set of eyes was fixed on her prone form. Brimming with hate and scorn. Some were even smiling at seeing her in pain. Trash, the lot of them. That's why I loathe your kind. Every single one is the same. The Nine-Tails words emerged as an angry growl in her mind. Narumi didn't care about that, not when pain flared again when she tried to move her leg. I don't care about them, furball. Just heal it so I can run. Are you deaf, brat? If I heal this injury instantly, my chakra will become visible. You know what that means, don't you? They will think I am getting free and your life will get even tougher. Do you want that, huh, brat? I don't want that. Then just stay still and let me heal it. It will take a minute since the injury is deep, but I will heal it without my chakra getting visible. Narumi wiped the tears that were about to fall from her eyes. She gave a gratitude-filled smile through their link. Thank you, furball. The Titanic chakra beast clicked her tongue in annoyance. TCH. Disrespectful brat. Then give me your name if you want me to show you some respect. Narumi instantly retorted. An earth-shaking laugh emerged from the strongest being alive on the planet. Ha. Give you my name. Don't ask absurd things, brat. The majesty of my name will fry that puny brain of yours. You're not fit to hear the name of the majestic nine-tailed vixen. I bet it's pretty lame and that's why you don't tell me. You're just embarrassed that you got a lame name, furball. You puny little shit. Come inside the seal, brat. I will teach you some proper manners. Never. You will smush me the moment I come inside. The seal is open, I will never come inside while you're angry. Ha. At least this proves you do possess some bit of brain inside you, instead of that area being totally empty. Hey. Their back and forth did the work, it distracted her from the pain as the chakra beast inside her worked at her injury. Now stay still, I have to heal your nose, okay? MHM. Hearing the two voices at merely a foot away from her, Narumi focused back onto the boy she had collided with, momentarily stopping her conversation with her tenant. But the wince, she noticed, he was bleeding from the nose. He must have banged his nose in the asphalt due to her. Pretty hard too, from how much he had already bled from his nose. The orange color of the front of his t-shirt had many spots of blood on them. With jealousy burning brightly in her heart, she noticed how the older woman, obviously his mother from how similar they looked, took care of him. Fussing over him and healing him. How she longed for someone like what that boy got, she had too. How she wished she could call someone her mother too. How she wanted someone to take care of her and fuss over her. Cook warm meals for her and love her. Tuck her into a warm bed every night. But alas, she knew they would forever remain just that, dreams. Never would anyone love her, nor would anyone care for her. For she was a monster in everyone's eyes. The same monster that destroyed their village 6 years ago. Nothing more, but everything less. The moment the boy's mother healed him, he was upon his feet. Rushing towards her. Kneeling by her side, the boy looked at her knee worriedly. That looks very painful. Ma, can you please heal her too? Narumi's eyes widened. Didn't he know who she was? Why was he worried about her? Why was he asking his mother to heal her? Hesitantly, she turned her head to look at the boy's mother. She expected a look of loathing or anger at hurting her son, but nothing. The woman was busy squinting her eyes at her, as if trying to remember something or searching for something. She must have found what she was looking for her onyx eyes widened. Narumi knew what was coming next as the woman started walking towards her. The moment the woman kneeled down beside her son, Narumi squeezed her eyes shut. This wouldn't be the first time that some parents slapped her for just coming in contact with their kid, which she hadn't even initiated, to begin with. But here, right now, she had outright hurt someone's child. She expected a harsh slap, or even something worse. She waited. And waited. Waited still. But nothing happened. No pain came. Her head wasn't forced to the side by any blow. No, nothing. Anything, for that matter. In confusion, she opened her eyes just in time to feel the warmth enveloping her knee, and with borderline ridiculous amounts of disbelief, she looked on as this woman healed her wound. What was happening here? Why wasn't she berating her? Why wasn't she calling her a demon, or monster, or a murderer? Why wasn't she pulling her kid away from her? Why was she healing her wound? Why? Just why? In disbelief, she choked out a single word. Why? The woman seemed to ignore her question entirely. Focusing on her wound and then she started to speak. You shouldn't run blindly like that, dear. You could have suffered a more severe injury. Always look up while running, alright? Both of you only suffered a minor injury this time, but next time, it could be serious. Understand that, dear. Something lurched in her soul at how soft and soothing this woman's voice was. How filled with warmth and care it was. Why was she smiling so softly at her? Why? 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 She could understand when someone showed her hate. She could deal with it by just feigning ignorance. This. She didn't know what to do. What was she supposed to say? No matter what she might want to say, no voice would have come out of her. There was a lump in her throat. It made her throat dry. It made it impossible for her to speak. And something made her small chest tight. So tight. Patting her knee gently, the woman stood up, the blonde kid following her movement also stood up. You're crying. Was it hurting so much? But it's alright now, isn't it? Ma healed you. Come on, stand up now." A hand was suddenly in front of her face. "Let's get you cleaned up too. You're very dirty." Was she crying? She could certainly feel something wet and hot roll down her whiskered cheeks. Why was she crying? She didn't know. Just something was happening to her the longer she stayed with the strange mother-son duo. She stared at the hand as if it was the strangest thing she had seen. Her teary violet eyes followed that arm and focused on his face. Even though her vision was blurry due to tears, she saw him as clear as day. Eyes bluer than the clear lake she sometimes uses to take a bath in. Hair the shade of gold and as bright as the sun. And again, for the second time in her life, she saw someone smiling at her. The first being his mother. His smile was bright. Brighter than anything, like the light at the end of her own dark tunnel. Looking at her expectantly that she would take his hand. Something in her soul cried to take his hand. Fingers twitched by her side. Take it. Take it. Take it. Take his hand. Her mind chanted at her. Yelling at her to take it. Slowly, very reluctantly, she started reaching for it with her own hand. That was all she managed before her tenant's snarling voice dripping with hate rang in her head. Bellowing a warning. Run, brat. They both are Uchiha. Something broke in her already broken soul at that moment. Uchiha. They were the worst. While everyone tried to hurt her physically, they did something far worse. Much, much worse. They tried to make her see things with their weird glowing dull red eyes. Horrible, horrible things. They only lasted for a few seconds before the titanic entity inside her snapped her out of it. But they always did their number on her. They were just so horrible. Panic set first, then fear. Followed by emotion she didn't even recognize. Immediately, she batted his hand aside and bolted out of there. She scarcely heard the blonde boy's shout of wait. Behind her, busy as she was running away from the strange pair of mother and son. Of course, it just had to be Uchiha. Fate was a cruel mistress, after all. Something good can never happen to her. Not her. Never her. Still, she dared to glance back. Glanced at the boy who still had a hand stretched out. Looking at her with sadness. Glanced at the older woman beside him, who was watching her retreating form with a frown on her face. Chest tightening, she looked in front again and ran. Not looking back. Never looking back. Because looking back brought a pang to her heart. And she didn't want to deal with the extra ache it brought to her heart. In the far future, she would often look back at this day, wondering how her life would have been if she had accepted that hand of his. How it would have changed her sooner. Would have changed everything sooner. But alas, those were only what and ifs. Something that would forever remain unchanged, no matter how much would she think about them. For now, she just ran. Because running away was all she could do for now. Lucaru watched the girl's retreating figure with a frown, marring her delicate features. She had recognized the girl almost instantly. Her red hair dirty as they might be, and her violet eyes were a clear indication of who she was. Lord Third had declared the child dead, but lo and behold, here she was. Alive and running, literally. She had only met the woman in passing, but her red hair was impressionable. This girl then could only be the child of Lord Fourth and his wife, Kishina Uzumaki. And from what she was hearing from around, that was the demon fox, wasn't it? Yeah. That thing was definitely the fox masquerading as a child. How could Lord Third even allow that thing to run free like that? He should have killed that thing. Lord Third has even passed down the law. We can't even do anything to that thing. Does that thing have no shame? Running around like that after murdering so many of us. Honestly, that thing should just die. She was also the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. The living container which contained the monster inside her and kept it at bay. But was it really? Was it really a monster? A mindless monster that everyone said it was? Although she didn't know it for sure, a being of such cataclysmic power could not be mindless. If it was mindless, the land they lived on would not be around. Everything would have been destroyed. There would have been no life around if it was truly as mindless as they say. No, a being of such power could not be mindless. Its power was incomparable. Certainly, it could be subdued by other means, but no one could ever hope to compare to its raw power. But that was entirely irrelevant right now. Pondering about it would grant her nothing but a headache. Hearing the things the populace was saying around brought a rare grimace on her face. Truly, what barbaric thinking. A child, the same age as her son, could not be a monster. Monsters did not cry where she was. Monsters did not look scared where she did. That was simply a girl with the worst hand of fate played to her. And for that matter, what was the Lord Third doing? From one look at the girl's malnourished short form tattered rag she wore and the very dirty skin, it was clear the girl was without a home. This girl was technically the princess of this village. She was royalty. Daughter of the last absolute ruler of this village. And she was also royalty on her mother's part. This girl was born in novelty and yet she was living the worst of life. Poorer than even the poorest around. She should have lived a life befitting a princess, and yet, she was homeless. Forced to bear all the hatred of the villagers. What unjust. She had no doubts in her mind that Lord Third knew of the girl's situation. There was absolutely no way he did not keep track of, as loath as she was to say or even think about it, the village's weapon. For that was what she had become as the Jinchuriki. Her worth as the daughter of the last Hokage did not remain much as she would be worth as the village's weapon. So what was he doing? Was this some kind of elaborate ploy of his? It certainly looked like it. Was he forcing this girl into the depths of loneliness so he can come and save this girl from it at the right moment, earning her absolute loyalty to him? To this village. That certainly looked like the scenario. For all his preaching as the kind, peace-loving old man, people tend to forget he still was the Hokage. The same one who had led them to victory in 2 great ninja wars. He was also the student of the most shrewd and intelligent individual in history, the Lord Second, Tobirama Senju. Some such as him would certainly not be above playing underhand tactics like this so as to earn complete loyalty of the girl. But even for him, this was certainly low. Very low, indeed. Downright barbaric. Inhumane, even. Pity welled up in her breast for this girl. The girl didn't even have a choice in what she wanted to do in her life. Her choice was already taken away from her by her very own father, no less. She would become a shinobi of this village, whether she liked it or not, doesn't matter to anyone. If she wanted to become a chef. Denied. An artist. Denied. Teacher. Denied. Everything. Denied. Anything. Denied. There was only one choice for her, really. She would be forced into the life of depravity. A mercenary for hire. And a loyal weapon for the village. Ordered to slaughter anyone or everyone in the name of the village. And if she decided to retaliate, she would be put down. The beast extracted from her and she would be left to die. That was how her life is going to be. There was no out for her as long as she lived here. No other choice for her. That's what her father had taken away from her. Her very own choice to choose what she wants to do. Certainly, she could dream. But her dreams have to revolve around only shinobi things. Like becoming Hokage, for example. There was nothing else for her, really. How could a father do this to his own daughter? What was he even thinking? He destroyed her life as soon as she took her first breath. He took any semblance of normalcy away from her. No. She understood it well enough. He decided to be a leader first and a father second. He succeeded as a wonderful leader but failed miserably as a parent. She doubted he would be able to look her daughter straight in the eyes. Or even call her his daughter after what he had put her through when they met in the afterlife. She understood the decision well enough but couldn't bring herself to sympathize with the man. If she would have been forced to choose between the village and her son. Well, let's just say she would set the village on fire all by herself. No 9 tails would be needed. She would become the reckoning herself. For her, Naruto was everything. Her dear child mattered to her the most. Everything. Second. She would betray anyone and everyone in a heartbeat if it concerned her child's safety. Nothing was too extreme in her mind as long as Naruto remained safe. After all, she finally had something to call her own. She wasn't going to let him go. A mistake he might be, but to her, he was more. He was her everything. So yeah, she understood the man, but couldn't sympathize with him. They just had different morals and priorities. Hers was her son. His was his village. That was all to the matter. Nothing more, nothing less. Though she would be lying if she said she didn't lose any kind of respect for the man. Because she did. A lot of it. Ma, did I do something wrong? She focused her attention back on her son at his question. He was looking down at his hand that was batted aside sadly. Oh no, dear, you did nothing wrong. It's just she struggled to find the word to explain her situation to him. In the end, she came up with nothing except for one single, simple word. Her situation is difficult right now, to say the least. Difficult would be a titanic understatement, but she couldn't explain it to him, not right now. As it was, he wasn't mature enough to understand it. Maybe in a few years, but not right now. Oh, so I did nothing wrong to upset her, really? Yeah, Naruto, she gently tousled his spiky hair. You did nothing wrong, instead you did the right thing by offering her a hand. Oh, instead of the smile he usually graced her with, he looked back in the direction the girl had run off to. She was scared. Her eyebrows rose in slight surprise. Oh. Was she now? He nodded his head, still looking in her direction. She was very scared. As if she had seen a ghost. She was going to take my hand, but she was scared. A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. That was surprisingly very insightful of him. He understood that she was scared. Scared of something, that's why he asked if he did something wrong. Perhaps, he would be able to understand her situation sooner. And, what do you want to do about it? He looked down at the hand that girl had batted aside. Small fingers curled in a tight fist. I want to help her. Her smile widened. Pride bloomed in her chest. At that moment, she felt as if she had done something right. Raised him right. She felt content. satisfied that she had turned into an alright parent. Given him good morals in this moralless world. Her hand tousled his hair once more, forcing his attention back on her. Then do it. Don't stop until she accepts your hand. She will need a friend. Someone to be with her. To be her support. Someone she could always come to no matter what she did. Someone she can feel safe with. Be that someone for her, alright. I will, Ma. Naruto nodded. Thumping his chest with his small fist. Grinning broadly, all the while. Good boy. With a last ruffle of his hair, she offered him her hand. Shall we go now? His small hand latched onto her bigger one, and he nodded. Let's go, Ma. Smiling, she started walking alongside him. This was good. This was all she could do for that girl. For she was in Uchiha. If she actively decided to search for her and then help her, the fragile peace between the village and her clan would snap. The foolish people will think that they were actively trying to get in the Nine Tails' good grace. And that would put Naruto in danger. She couldn't have that now. In no way will she ever do something that will put her son in danger. If she was someone else, someone other than in Uchiha, she might have been able to help the girl herself. But she was in Uchiha, so she couldn't. So, she was going to do the next best thing. If her son was able to befriend that girl on his own, then no one will suspect them. She could help the girl that way. But until he met her again on his own, they could do nothing. That was something she just had to keep faith in fate. Until then, nothing. She just hoped that girl's life would get better until he met her again. For now, she can only hope. Naruto. He tilted his head up. Yes, Ma. When you befriend that girl, do bring her home for dinner, alright. I think she would very much like to eat warm homemade food, okay? When, not if. Because she had absolute trust that her son would be able to befriend that poor girl. Naruto beamed up at her. Of course, Ma. She graced him with a soft smile, and they continued walking. From her peripheral vision, she glanced at the populace, throwing them suspicious glares. Some were even outright scowling at them. Of course, the little act of kindness on their part would not go unnoticed. People were angry with both of them. Her lips pursed in a thin line. Truly, this village is filled with barbaric brutes. Deciding they were not worth any more attention on her part, she focused forward again. Her eyes lit up at seeing a flower shop close by. Sweetie, let's stop by the flower shop. Huh? He looked up at her in confusion. Why? She blinked slowly. Because we have to buy flowers for Raiko. Raiko? She looked at him in genuine shock. So Sharingan was all it took for him to move on for all the Kree. Raiko, his eyes started watering again. Oh god. She thought that too soon. Honey, don't cry now. Raiko, oh god. Why did she open her damned mouth? For the love of God. Somebody help her. Raiko, please. Naruto, can you please take these plates to the table? Makara raised her voice loud enough so she could be heard throughout the house. Yes, Ma. His voice came from somewhere near the backyard. Rapid sounds of footfalls started to become clearer and clearer. Makara turned her head just in time to see Naruto enter the kitchen. A chiding expression came on her face. How many times have I told you not to run in the house, sweetie? You can slip on the flooring and injure. She cut herself off as she noticed something. Naruto came beside her with a sheepish expression on his face. Sorry, Ma. I will not do it again. Naruto. Yes, Ma. He tilted his head up to look at her. Your Sharingan is activated again. He grinned, his vibrant scarlet eyes glinting due to the light falling straight on his face. Yeah, I know. I wasn't telling you know what, she exhaled a deep breath. Why are you using it so much, dear? Because it's the coolest thing, Ma. He stated it as it should be the most obvious thing in the entire world while he started taking away the plates. I see. She shook her head with a resigned smile as she looked forward once again. One of the most fearsome bloodlines present. Just the mere sight of it has a great many people running away in fear. Reduced to a mere toy for her dear son's amusement. A toy of all things. All because he found it cool. It was so her Naruto. Only her son could think of their entire clan's pride and joy as a mere toy for his amusement. Really, she had never heard of anyone using their Sharingan just for amusement's sake. And yet, her dear son was using it for just that, for his amusement. She had heard countless things by which their Sharingan had been described by, but never had she heard some other Uchiha calling them cool. As if describing some unique toy. Don't just overuse it again, okay, sweet. Thud. Makara looked up at the ceiling and heaved an audible sigh. Turning around, she watched with a bemused expression as her son was sprawled across the floor. This was not the first time this has occurred. How many times has it happened again? This was 11th or maybe the 12th time since he had activated his Sharingan 2 weeks ago. The first time she was worried, the same emotion continued for the second, the third, and the fourth time. After the 5th time, she started to feel amused by this. Yes, she was definitely amused. By the 7th time, she was laughing. Now, she felt a sense of detachment to it. Resigned herself that this was going to be a common occurrence in their house now. In hindsight, when he had asked her to teach him how to activate his Sharingan the morning prior the day he activated it, she should have known this would happen. She was sure some part of her knew exactly this would happen. But you know, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. If she were to look at this situation from a different perspective, there were no negatives of what he was doing, really. Just that he could hurt himself while falling, other than that, nothing. On the other hand, there were many positives to this situation. His chakra reserves were increasing bit by bit every day, not by a significant margin, mind you, but they were increasing at the end of the day, albeit at a very slow rate. Chakra coils were like any muscle in our human body. The more you strain them, the more they will grow. It just skipped the breaking down of the muscle part and just focused straight at growing. No. There was a breakdown in it involved, her son lying on the floor and occasionally moaning so tired could be considered that. There was just no pain involved in the process, that was the difference in between muscles and chakra coils, she mused. The other positive effect was that he was getting accustomed to using Sharingan. In a very unique way than everyone else, but he was getting accustomed to using it. There was also some positive in his way too, he was using his Sharingan to notice the most mundane things in very significant detail. If that thing is taken into a battle, well his Sharingan will allow him to see more intricate things in the midst of battle. This unique use of his Sharingan will also make him notice some mundane things that others missed. And oftentimes, it's not the intricate details that make you win a battle, it's the mundane things you tend to miss. So you could say there was a method to this madness. More like a method to this recklessness. She pointedly ignored the amused voice in her head. Focusing on the more pressing matters for now. Few silent strides brought her to her son's prone form. She looked down at his face with an exasperated look, but of course, there was also a touch of concern in her eyes. Again, sweetie. She sank down to her knees and helped him sit up. Are you hurt? He slumped forward and placed his chin on the dining table, slowly, he shook his head. No, I am fine. Okay. I will bring breakfast. Just rest, okay? Another positive or is it negative? To this situation, he was getting used to chakra exhaustion. Being able to function properly, albeit sluggishly, relatively quick. This was strange. Strange thing, indeed. Everyone tends to shy away from completely depleting their chakra in order to avoid chakra exhaustion as much as they can. There are only a few instances in a person's life when they truly suffer from chakra exhaustion. People also tend to ignore this method to increase their chakra reserves. And why wouldn't they? Who wants to feel super sluggish on a daily basis? And yet, her dear son was getting used to it. As if chakra exhaustion was a daily exercise he had to do. She supposed it could be attributed to his large stamina. Well, he was drained of chakra, stamina was another thing altogether. His chakra reserves were smaller than his stamina reserves. To explain it simply, if her son were to fight in an only ninjutsu battle compared to a plain taijutsu battle, he would last excessively longer in a straight-up taijutsu battle, whereas he would be already drained in an only ninjutsu battle by not even half the time. His larger stamina helped him recover faster, in conclusion. It certainly didn't accelerate his chakra recovery rate, but he would be able to gain the ability to be back on his feet quicker than many individuals. It was yet another positive to this unique situation, his endurance was increasing. But while his chakra was increasing in meager amounts, his endurance was increasing at a significant rate. Unknowingly, he was training himself. While it was all a game in his mind, he was training himself. His body was becoming more accustomed to handling chakra stress, and his endurance was increasing day by day. In other words, a strong foundation was being built. If he so chooses, he could go far. Very far. Because he was building a foundation strong enough that many people won't be able to compete. Most people tend to start by wanting to learn cool ninja techniques, so no one focuses on the foundation first. Everyone just wants to dive headfirst in ninja techniques, no one cares for endurance, or even letting their bodies get accustomed to the stress using chakra brought to their bodies. That is the reason only a few are able to go very far in the shinobi world. Most never build a foundation strong enough that will take them far. And the others are in it for fun, for earning fame, specifically. She supposed it was a good thing in the end what he was doing. If he someday wanted to become a shinobi, he would find it easier than most. Though that if was looking more and more like when. Since the day he activated his Sharingan, he had become curious about it. Asking random questions about it and their clan. Getting interested in the history of their clan and more. It was looking like only a matter of time when he finally took an interest in becoming a shinobi. Well, until then, she supposed she should enjoy these innocent fun-loving days. She should savor it all while he is still doing silly little things. Because after he became a shinobi, he would change, everyone does. What he will see, what he will do, will change him. It will not change his heart, but mentally yeah until then, she would enjoy everything with him. As much as she could. Setting the breakfast down on the table, she took a seat beside him. I will feed you, okay? He gave a tired smile to her and raised his head. Thank you, Ma. MHM. She gave him a gentle smile. After a quick prayer of thank you for the meal, she started feeding him. Swallowing the bite she fed him, he looked up at her face. Are you angry, Ma? Swallowing her own portion, she looked at him with a curious look. Why would I be angry, Naruto? You know, he looked down at his lap. How I keep collapsing and make you worry. If I think about that, I suppose I should be angry with you. She smiled at seeing him flinch. But, I am not. Really? Really? She nodded at seeing him look up at her with hopeful eyes. Picking up another bite for him, she moved it in front of his face. Now say ah. Smiling, he opened his mouth. Glad that his mother wasn't angry with him. Ah, she giggled. He was so cute. Feeding him another bite, she spoke with a soft smile on her face. You're doing what every other child your age would do, Naruto. Although, you're overdoing it a tad bit in this case, it's not necessarily bad. I don't mind that much, I am just worried you might hurt yourself while falling. Swallowing down the last remains of food, he looked back at her face with an apologetic look. I am sorry, Ma. I will try to be more careful. Swallowing down her own bite, she gave him another one of her soft smiles. I guess that's there to it then. I won't say anything more about this. You do what you think is right, okay? Just be careful. Okay, good. Besides, she pinched his cheek with her free hand and started pulling on it with a playful smile. It's hard to get angry at such a cute face. Ma. Witguo. It hurts. Laughing, she let go of his cheek, patted it once, and started feeding him again. Come on dear, say ah. Naruto pouted. He tried to glare at her, but couldn't. In the end, he opened his mouth. Ah, with a content smile on her face, she fed him and ate herself. Occasionally, she glanced at his face in curiosity. It was the first time for him to ask such a question as if she was mad or not, because she never got mad at him. Were you feeling guilty, Naruto? Abruptly, he flinched. Her suspicion was confirmed. He looked down at his lap, squirming in his place slightly. A little. Oh. A mischievous smile came on her face. Usually, she would never think of taking advantage of such a situation, but well, this time was special. So are you willing to make up for it? His head bobbed at a fast rate. I am. The gleam entered her onyx eyes. Yufufufu. Then prepare yourself, sweetie. He gulped. Somehow, he had this strange feeling he agreed to something really, really embarrassing. But oh well, he was feeling guilty to make his mother worried so much for the past 2 weeks. He was willing to make up for it. Besides, his dear mother wouldn't do anything too extreme, right? Right. Yufufufu. Somebody please save him. Turns out, she did. She went above and beyond to make him embarrassed. What did she do, you ask? She made him wear skirts. Frilly one, too. Not just one skirt. Oh no. She made him wear countless of them. Dresses too. And did he tell you about the wigs that she made him wear? Yeah, there was that too. She made him pose in them. She took pictures of him. And worst of all, she took him out of the house in them. Odd. He wanted to die when a lady asked if he was Naruto's sister or something. He was not Naruto's sister. He was Naruto himself. He wanted to be mad. So mad. He wanted to scream by the end of the day. But how can he? When she looked so happy when she was enjoying herself so much. So how can he be mad? In the end, he agreed to wear more whenever she asked. And she did just that, shamelessly. But despite the utter embarrassment he felt, he also felt happy watching his mother be happy. His dear mother always did her best for him, so sometimes, he could do something for her too, right? Well, he didn't know it much, he knew every family consisted of a mother, a father, and a child. But he never felt the need for a father like other kids. He never felt jealous of watching other kids playing with their father. Because to him, his mother is both his mother and father. That's why he never asked why he didn't have a father. Because he simply never felt the need for it. So if his mother could work twice as hard for him, couldn't he suffer some embarrassment if it meant making her happy? He didn't know about what other people might think, but to him, the answer was as clear to him as if seeing something with his Sharingan. Yes. It was perfectly alright for him to suffer some embarrassment if it meant making her happy. But, all the sentiments aside, he will have his revenge. Oh, yes. Justice will be swift. Justice will be painful. It will be delicious. They are very delicious, honey. Makara said, sniffing slightly with a totally red face. They are, aren't they, Ma? His very visage was of innocence. His smile, the definition of innocence. Yeah, they are. Her eyes were watering due to the insane amounts of spice in the rice bowl she was eating. Seriously. She had never seen a rice bowl giving a feeling of malice before. Nor had she seen red miasma oozing from a mere rice bowl before. It was his way of taking revenge, wasn't it? He was making her eat this because she had constantly made him wear all those clothes for the past month, wasn't he? He knew she didn't like spicy food that much. Some amount of spice was okay, it added a flavor to food, but this. It felt like he had used the entire bottle of red pepper. She was sure if she wanted to use some fire release jutsu, she just had to breathe. No use of chakra would be required. Natural flames would come out of her mouth at this moment. Her entire body felt sweaty. Eyes were watering. Her nose was running. And her lips, mouth and throat were burning. Worst of all. She couldn't deny the rice balls he had made. It was the first time he had made anything and she didn't have the heart to not eat them, no matter how spicy they were. All things considered, for his first try, the rice balls were perfectly shaped. As if they were made by her. Considering he had copied her, she wasn't that far in her thinking. Literally, he had copied her by using his Sharingan. Who knew you could learn cooking by using Sharingan? Truly, her dear son was discovering new mundane ways to use their clan's pride and joy. Do you need some water, Ma? Yes, dear. I would like that. She certainly needed it. Here, Ma, water. Thank you. Splash. Oops, I dropped it. Her jaw slacked. Sadist. Her dear son was a sadist. For there was no mistaking the vindictive pleasure behind those clear sapphire eyes. She learned something today, if her son wanted revenge, he could be vicious. Utterly merciless when getting back at someone. Dear, he slid his lunchbox towards her moments later. You can have my dessert, Ma. Eh? She blinked in surprise, accumulated tears rolling down her flushed cheeks in the process. Are you sure? He turned his head away from her. Just eat it, Ma. Ah. He finally reached his limit at watching her suffer. So even if it's a prank of his own, he couldn't watch her suffer for much. Oh. Smiling, she accepted the dessert. A moan of relief and delight escaped her lips the moment she took a spoonful of the dessert and it did its job at soothing her burning taste buds. Abruptly, he stood up from his seat. Seeing the curious look on her face, he answered her unspoken question in a soft voice. I am going to get milk for you. I have read in the newspaper that you read that milk can help when you eat too much spice. I will be back. She watched him go with a curious look on her flushed face. He was behaving differently from just moments prior. She shrugged her shoulders and got back at devouring the dessert back. She would ask it when he gets back, but for now. You are mine cheesecake. This was heaven. This cheesecake was heaven. It should be a crime to make such a good cheesecake. Somebody, please just lock her up yo. She yelped as something very cold was suddenly pressed against her hot cheek. Ha 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 ha. Hearing the familiar, slight high-pitched laugh, she turned to look at Naruto, but her vision was obscured by an expanse of a white thing. He pulled the bottle back and her eyes blinked back in proper focus on the bottle of cold milk. Here, Ma, he dangled the bottle of milk in front of her. Drink this. It will help yo. Dimith it. She pounced. Snatching the bottle away from him and uncorking it in a single seamless movement. The moment the chilled liquid filled her mouth, a relieved moan came straight from her throat. Without stopping, she gulped mouthful after mouthful of it. The chilled liquid soothed her burning mouth and throat more than the cheesecake did. A relieved sigh escaped her parted lips once she finished downing the milk. Okay, a bead of sweat rolled down the side of his face at the eagerness of his mother. Shrugging his shoulders, he took his seat back at the table. That helped, it really did. She might just send her thanks to the person who added that tiny tidbit of information in the newspaper. Are you feeling better now, Ma? Yes, dear, yes I am, she heaved another relieved sigh as the burning finally soothed down enough. It was still there, but it was negligible right now. I am sorry. Eh? She blinked in surprise at the unexpected apology. Was he feeling guilty now? That would explain his sudden change in behavior moments prior. Why are you apologizing, Naruto? It was just a harmless prank that was very justified. Didn't like it. He mumbled. I am sorry dear, I didn't get it. Can you please repeat it again? His nose started to turn red. I didn't like it. Why was he getting embarrassed? Didn't like what, dear? He turned his head away from her and started squirming in his place. I didn't like watching you in tears. Tears? She blinked. She wasn't Crino. Honey, I wasn't crying. It was just due to how spicy the rice bowl was my eyes teared up. I still didn't like it. He mumbled. Head still turned away from her. But she could see his ears turning redder by the second. Was it wrong she was smiling like a loon? If it was, she totally didn't mind. Because right now, she felt just so happy. And? Her son was. Just. So. Cute. Oh. Come here. No. Stay away from me. Your hands are still full of pepper. Eh? Don't care, come to mama. No. No yeah. XXXXXXXXXX. Honestly, Emiko shook her head in exasperation. You both are such a handful. We both apologize. Mikara and Naruto had their heads bowed in apology, both seated in a doggiza with their hands touching the tatami flooring. Yeah, she waved her hand in dismissal. Just raise your heads, no need to be so dramatic. Both raised their heads as they were told, neither looked apologetic, both were supporting smiles. Emiko rolled her eyes at seeing that. You both are so shameless. We are sorry. She snapped. Say it when you both only mean it. Don't say sorry with a smile on your faces. Naruto snickered and Makara restrained a giggle behind an open palm. Emiko palmed her face. Why can't she just be mad at them? Oh right, Makara was like a little sister to her and Naruto, well, he was cute. And she liked cute boys. End of the story. By the way, what were you two even doing? How did the tatami mat get wet in the first place? Naruto averted his eyes. She got her answer. And how did the table get flipped? Makara averted her eyes. And she got her answer. And why was there a tear in the door? Both averted their eyes at the same time. And she twitched. Right. I am taking the money for repairs out of your salary. Please. Don't do that. How will both of us survive? Are you so cruel to do that? Makara pleaded. It's okay, Ma. Naruto abruptly hugged Makara. I will eat only 2 times every day, you don't have to worry. How can you be so cruel? Have you no shame? Makara hugged Naruto back. You don't have to do that, dear, I will eat only 1 time so you can get proper 3 meals. Both of them looked at Emiko together. We hope you're happy. Emiko's jaw slacked. They were acting as they were the victims here, the nerve of both of them. They even had the gall to smile at each other. Perhaps she was getting too soft on them. Yes, she had to remind them who was the boss around here. So I am being cruel here, right? Her upper face got covered in an ominous shadow and a kendo stick appeared in her hands from somewhere. She smacked the shaft of the stick in her open palm, causing both the mother and son to flinch. Right. We were just joking, right, dear? Yeah. His head bobbed up and down so fast, Emiko thought it might fall off at any moment. We were just joking. Ahahaha. She took a step forward, both of them retreated 3 steps back. It doesn't look like a joke to me. Makara and Naruto looked at each other, then back up at the suddenly looming over them Emiko. Both of them put up their brightest smiles. Mercy. All out of it. And then she swung the kendo stick down. XXXXXXXXXX. My butt hurts, Naruto groaned. Lying on his belly on the wooden floor. Oh, hush, Emiko chided Naruto absent-mindedly as she was busy filling the bag up with groceries. I didn't hit that hard. You did. You so did, big sis. Naruto snapped from his position. Oh? Is there a problem with it? She glanced back at him with her upper face covered in an ominous shadow. No. Naruto squeaked. He forced a shiver down. She is so scary. Good. A self-satisfied smile blooming on her pale face. Finishing filling the bag up with groceries, she slid the bag across the counter. That will be 1,375 rim, sir. HN. Here, the dark-haired man placed the money on the counter. Smiling, she took the money and deposited it in the drawer, taking the change out in the process. Here, sir, your change. HN. The man pocketed the change and hefted the bag full of groceries up and started walking out of the store. Thank you for your patronage. Please do come again. HN. Emiko twitched. Couldn't he just say something instead of grunting? Damn typical Uchiha. You're an Uchiha too, big sis, Naruto reminded her cheekily. Don't try to be cheeky with me, brat. Naruto laughed. Love you too, big sis. HMPH. Cheeky brat. Her words lacked any heat and there was a small smile on her face. Dear, I want these. Emiko's attention was pulled away from Naruto to the sound of a customer on the next counter. She blinked at the items deposited on the counter. That's a lot of snacks. She glanced at Makara and a feeling of dread started filling her at seeing the concerned look on her face. Oh no, she wouldn't. Ma'am, are these all for you? Makara asked the portly woman after glancing at the snacks. Yes, they are. Is there a problem? I wouldn't say there is a problem, but she placed her hand against her cheek and a worrying expression came over her face. You shouldn't eat this much, ma'am. These snacks are very unhealthy for you, they can cause many health problems. If you eat them unconcernedly akin to a pig, yo. Are you calling me a pig? The portly woman shrieked with a red face. And no ma'am. I wasn't calling you a pie. Keep them. I don't need them. I will just buy them from another store where people aren't so rude. The portly woman scoffed and started walking away. Ma'am. Ma'am, please listen to me. Ma'am. Ma, what did you say? Why did that lady get mad at you? You were just worried about her. Naruto asked with a genuine look of confusion on his face. I don't know, honey, I don't know. Maybe it was something I said. Makara replied with the same look of genuine confusion on her face. Emiko watched the confused mother-son duo with a dull look. Ah. Now there are two totally tactless people. Makara turned towards Emiko and bowed her head. I am sorry, Emi. I don't know why this keeps happening and the customers always get angry at me. I am so sorry. It's alright, Makara, it's not your fault. not really. She was just born tactless, so it was not her fault, technically. One look at her son also confirmed he was walking on the same path of tactlessness his mother walked. Worst of all, there was also no fix for this. You just cannot fix what was not there, to begin with. They both were born without tact. So there was nothing she could do except to accept it. You're not angry at me, are you? No, Mikara, I am not. She would readily admit she was a relatively short-tempered individual, but getting angry at Mikara was something she found hard, nigh impossible to do. This woman's concern for everyone nature reminded her of her own little sister. No, perhaps it was because it was Mikara who had become like this, she was reminded of her little sister more. That was also the reason she could never be angry at Mikara. You will not be cutting my salary, would you? She sighed. No, I will not be cutting your salary. Mikara smiled. Thank you so much, Emi. The older Uchiha woman smiled in return. Just get back to work, Mikara. Just then, a woman entered the shop with a curious look on her face. Glancing to the right and spotting them, she walked towards them. Is what I have heard is true? There is a flat 20% discount on toiletry items here. Mikara's gaze snapped towards a catatonic Emiko. A hand delicately cupped her cheek. Oh dear, you shouldn't have used that word. The woman rightfully appeared confused. Huh? What word? I just want to know if there is a flat 20% off on toiletry items or not. Naruto hopped on his feet with a worried look on his face. Oh no, you used it again. What word, kid, what happened to her? The woman looked at the catatonic Emiko strangely. Flat I am flat Emiko's entire frame started trembling before she suddenly sunk down to her knees and started sobbing. I am so sorry that I am flat. What in the devil's name happened to her? Why is she suddenly crying? The woman shrieked in shock. Ah. Emiko has a trauma for the word you just used. Mikara answered with a strained smile as she knelt down beside weeping Emiko and started rubbing her back. What word? The woman blinked. Flat. I am so sorry. So sorry for being flat. A bead of sweat rolled down the woman's face. I will just see myself out. I will come back later, okay? Bye. The woman didn't wait for a reply and just bolted out of there. Calm down, big sis, calm down. This is going to take some time. Mikara just continued to rub Emiko's back. Hey, I just heard there is a flat 20% off on toiletry items here, is it true? I am so sorry for being flat. Sis. What did I say? Oh, dear. This is definitely going to take some time. XXXXXXXXXX. Thank you for your patronage. We do hope you will come again. HN. Mikara heaved a sigh as yet another fellow clan member grunted instead of replying. She had figured it out ages ago that the grunt was a genetic trait that almost all Uchiha inherited. Almost. Sometimes it makes me wonder what crawled up their asses and died. Emiko, language. She admonished gently, casting a look back at her son, who was too busy reading the book about their clan to pay any attention to them. Ah. The brat is nose deep in the book to pay any attention to us. It's not like he heard me. Emiko replied with a dismissive gesture of her hand. Still, Mikara insisted. I don't want him to become a foul-mouthed person. Emiko snorted. You worry too much, Mikara. The brat is a copy of the current you, he is not going to pick up bad habits at this rate. Mikara didn't say anything more to that and just huffed. She had known this woman since she was barely a teen, so Emiko knew exactly how she was before she changed. And she was not proud of her past self. At all. She was a cocky girl. So cocky. Thinking she could breeze past anything just because she was in a Uchiha. Then, reality struck her in the face. Hard. So very hard. And she started to change. For her own sake and for her sake as well. Emiko was her older sister. The one who decided not to become a shinobi so she will inherit the family's store, and her little sister could live her dream of becoming a shinobi. When she had died, protecting her, taking the blow meant for her, she had always thought Emiko would always hate her. She wouldn't have blamed the older woman if she did, but she didn't. Instead, they both found comfort in each other. Emiko became an older sister of sorts for her. Perhaps the woman was just using her for a substitute for her, but she didn't mind. She needed someone as much as Emiko needed someone. So they found comfort in each other. Over time, using each other as a substitute was all but forgotten, forming a bond of one where they took care of each other like real siblings. Emiko was the only person, dead or alive, who knew who Naruto's sperm donor was. Yes, sperm donor. Though she did consider him as his father when she hadn't given birth to him and raised him, after raising him, she considered no one to be his father. Regardless, she was getting off topic here. Telling Emiko that fact alone showed how much she trusted the older woman. Or it would be better to say, she trusted only this woman in the entire village. You know, Mikara's attention came back to Emiko as she started speaking. I am still surprised you're letting him read our clan's history or how our basic Sharingan works. At the rate he is taking an interest in these things, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes an interest in being a shinobi. I thought you didn't want him to become a shinobi, what changed? Nothing changed, she shook her head and softly replied. I still don't want him to become a shinobi, I know for sure the shinobi life is not suited for him. But if he wants to become something on his own, I wouldn't deny him. I will never stop him from pursuing his dreams. What I want is solely for me to want, it's not his duty to fulfill my wants. But it's my duty to support him in anything he wants to do. That's what I learned after being a parent, you know. Miko stared at her for several long seconds before she shook her head and started giggling. In other words, he got you wrapped around his little fingers. Maybe, Makara shrugged her shoulder helplessly. It wasn't like what she had said was wrong, besides, what parent doesn't like being wrapped around their child's little fingers? Once Miko's giggling subsided, a gentle look appeared on her face which was rare for a woman with such a strong character. You know, you may have failed as an Uchiha, may have failed as a teammate, may have failed as a medic ninja, may have failed as a shinobi, but you succeeded with flying colors when it comes to being a parent to Naruto. Imi, her eyes felt blurry due to the tears gathering in her eyes. She gave a brilliant smile to her. Thank you. Coming from you, those words mean a lot to me. Yes, well, she immediately turned away from Makara, heat rising to her cheeks. Don't expect me to say such embarrassing words again, okay, woman. Makara giggled behind an open palm. Of course, Imi. Seriously, this woman was such a tsundere. And don't just stand there giggling like that, get back to work. Makara giggled again. Yes ma'am. Miko huffed. Like mother, like son. Both were just so damn cheeky when they wanted to be, and sometimes even more than she can handle. Ma? Makara wiped the gathered tears away and turned around to face her son. Yes, dear. Naruto looked up from the book with a curious expression on his face. Can I ask you something? Sure, honey, what do you want to ask? It is stated in the book that, his eyes went back down to the book in his hands. A person only awakens Sharingan after suffering from some mental trauma. How did you unlock it, Ma? Her smile dropped a bit at that. Seeing the change in his mother's expressions, Naruto hastened to add. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. No, it's alright. Your question just caught me off guard. I don't mind answering it. She had known this question would come sooner or later, so she was prepared for it, but asked so abruptly, she was just thrown off guard for a moment there. She heaved a sigh and began to tell him. I gained my Sharingan when I was around 11 years old. It happened during my team's 3rd C rank mission. It was supposed to be a simple package delivery, nothing more nothing else, but we got ambushed by a bounty hunter, Wait. What is a C-ranked mission? What are missions, Ma? What is a bounty hunter? Right. He doesn't know this all. For the first time ever, she willingly indulged him in ninja-related things. Missions are what shinobis are assigned, Naruto. They are given to every squad depending on their skills and rank. Now, I will explain that to you later in detail because probably every reader knows about them in detail, so let's not waste time, okay? His face scrunched up in even more confusion. What readers? Don't break the fourth wall, Makara, or else an ominous shadow covered Miko's upper face and a kendo stick appeared in her hand from somewhere. Right, sorry. Ahem. As I was saying, I will explain how many ranks are there on a later date, okay? Good. She smiled at him and explained the rest to him. But I will tell you what a bounty hunter is. Bounty hunters are those shinobis who had defected from their villages for the sake of just collecting bounties. Generally, they are unsatisfied with the lack of fights or money they are getting in the village and set out in the world themselves to get either of those or both of those. Are you with me so far? Naruto bobbed his head as he continued to listen with rapt attention. He is listening to this with the utmost attention. I have never seen him this much interested in something besides the Sharingan or that poor girl. Her lips pursed in a thin line. She shook her head, filing that thought for later and continued. As a shinobi gets more infamous or famous, they start to gain a price on their persons. Usually, that price is listed by other villages that want that particular person dead or alive, or by a group, or it can be even from an individual. Bounty hunters hunt these individuals and take them as they are required. Some can become bounty hunters due to their circumstances, but otherwise, it is usually very greedy or battle-hungry people. Do you understand that now, Naruto? He stayed silent for some time. Some parts flew over his head, but he understood the gist of it. Bounty hunter, in other words, bad people. He nodded. I do, I think. That's enough for now. Her smile that she gave him shattered so much like a brittle glass as a shuddering sigh left her lips. Now, as I was saying, we were ambushed by a bounty hunter. Our sensei had a good amount of bounty on him from what he told us, the bounty hunter for that reason ambushed us. Long story short, one of my teammates died. Naruto gasped in horror. Died? Yes, honey, she nodded dolefully. He died. He wasn't even a friend of mine, he was just a teammate, an acquaintance if you will. We haven't even been a team for that long, but he was a teammate nonetheless, you know. His death was what unlocked my Sharingan." Oh, Naruto quietly looked down at the book in his lap. "That's horrible." "It is, dear. That's what shinobi life is." While some people from her village might call her manipulating at what she was doing, she preferred to tell him straight facts. Purely unfiltered. That's how she liked to tell him. You may think it was her own bias toward shinobi life that made her say that shinobi life is horrible, but truly, it is not. At the base, shinobi is just an exaggerated term for murderers. What made them different from the others is that they did it for the sake of the village. That didn't make it any more justified that they were, in the end, committing murder. If a shinobi is assigned a task to kill someone, they wouldn't care if that person has a family, have children, have a wife or a husband, have parents dependent on him or her. They wouldn't care if that person is innocent. They would care for nothing except their mission. And if that person refused to complete his or her mission, then he or she would be berated. Punished. No matter how much anyone glorifies the shinobi world, in the end, it is a very horrible world. There are no heroes in the shinobi world. For one who might be a hero, for the other, he or she would be the biggest villain. There are always two sides of a coin, people just tend to ignore that and focus on only one side, so they can justify their actions. Lord Fourth can be perhaps one of the biggest examples of this. The man who single-handedly ended the Third Great Shinobi War. Hailed as a hero. But was he really? A hero, that is. No. He wasn't. He committed a mass slaughter of over 1,000 shinobi, all in the name of this village. Here, he was hailed as a hero. In the Rock Village, well, he was their bane. The one who tore apart hundreds of their families. But it was a war, both sides were hurt. The Rock Village also tore apart hundreds of families. So no side could be put on one another. In the end, both sides were full of murderers. So could anyone fault her for trying to spare her only child the horrors of this cruel world? Well, personally, she didn't care for two bits of what others might think of her. She wouldn't lie to her dear son about what shinobi life was. If he truly desired to be one, she would not spare him any grisly detail at what being a shinobi truly entails. Call her whatever you want, but she wasn't going to let her child go out in the world thinking it's all sunshine and rainbows, only to discover that very dark thunderstorms were out there. Nope. She would tell him herself what the world was truly for its worth. The morbid silence in the shop was broken as Naruto perked up, although there was a visible lack of energy in him now. "How did you unlock it, big sis? You were not a shinobi, right? So how did you unlock it, eh?" Miko stuttered over her own words, and a slow flush started to creep up her neck and enveloped her entire face, till the very roots of her hair. Lucaris started laughing. The morbid atmosphere all but forgotten. "You know, it's a very funny story, dear. Eh? Really? Don't you say it." Miko tried to growl with a scarlet face, but it came out as a pitiful whine. Lucara grinned. "Imma say it. Don't you dare say it. Imma say it. No. Yes." Lucara laughed. "You see dear, your big sis here unlocked her Sharingan when she first gained the trauma for that word." At first, Naruto seemed confused, but not a moment later, his shoulders started trembling, and then, PFFTT. Ha 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 ha. Lucara also laughed with him, but Miko, well, get out of my store. Don't you two dare show your faces again in my store. I hate you. I hate you both so much. Well, she cried. A lot. XXXXXXXXXX. Not surprisingly, Miko did throw them both out after that little debacle. She hoped she would not cut her salary in some form of vengeance, but she digressed. That woman was vicious when it comes to taking revenge. Ah. She suddenly understood where Naruto got this sadistic side to him. Oh, well. It wasn't like she really needed the job. The money she had earned during her time as a ninja was still there. Still, she preferred to keep that money saved. You never know what could come up and all her money could be gone in an instant. For their day-to-day expenses, she preferred the job. Another thing was. She wanted to help Miko. Of course, with how the older woman is, she would never accept anyone's help, so she applied for a job there. She got a salary every month, and her desire to help Miko was also fulfilled. What was that saying again? Ah. Yes. She hit 2 targets with 1 kunai. It was a well-thought-out move on her part if she did say herself. Miko was not able to decline her help, and she started earning a steady income. A very well-thought move, indeed. Ma? She perked up at being called and turned her head slightly to look at Naruto, who was still nose-deep in the book he was reading. "Yes, dear. Who was Madara-cha?" She stilled. Eyes going wide at his question. Of all the things he had to be interested in, it just had to be that man. Why did you ask that, dear?" "It's just that." His eyes went back down to the book he was reading. "There are many mentions of the name Madara in this book, but there is no information on him." He looked back up at her with a curious tilt of his head. "Why is that, Ma? Why did the author even have to mention him?" A simple question raged in her mind. She took a deep breath and calmed herself. Panicking over anything wouldn't do any good. She turned back in front and closed off all the burners and flipped the switch off for the rice cooker. She had a feeling this was going to be a long chat, so she took all the necessary steps so their dinner wouldn't be ruined. Again. Washing her hands off in the sink, she turned around to the patiently waiting Naruto. Heaving an internal sigh, she walked towards the table. Taking a seat opposite to him, she contemplated what to say. Should she straight up tell him he was someone he shouldn't aspire to be or something else? Finally, she chose her words carefully. Madara Uchiha was someone who was initially a good man, but turned into something no one should aspire to be due to circumstances. She supposed that was the best way to describe the legendary Uchiha. Since she was a bookworm since starting, she had read almost everything the Uchiha library had to offer. She did know what he was or who he was by reading countless books on him. Some, that was even written by some people that were close to him. Personally, she had no knowledge of how he was in real life, only people who were alive by that time could tell that, but she would not be lying if she said she had more knowledge about him than most people today, just by reading so many books on him. And by what she had read so far, this was the best way to describe the man. Turned bad by circumstances. What circumstances, ma? His curiosity getting piqued by the minute, he questioned further. Bakura's lips pursed in a thin line. Should she tell him more or should she stop? She was getting this strange feeling if she continued telling him, she would not like the results by the end of this talk. At all. Bah. What the hell? She had never kept anything from him when he had asked, so why was she hesitating now? Whatever happens, happens. She was a firm believer in everything that happens for a reason. So this talk must be happening for a reason too. Her hesitation about the situation going down the drain, she told him what he asked. Madara Uchiha at first was a good man. A loving brother and a protective man of his family. During the time he lived, it was full of constant fighting. Uchiha and Senju. These two clans were the most powerful and kept on fighting for dominance over the other. When someone will hire one clan for protection, the other will hire the other for their own. That all started to change when Madara Uchiha met Hashirama Senju by an accident. Are you following me so far? Naruto bobbed his head in affirmation. A questioning look filtered on his face not a moment later. Hashirama Senju was the first Hokage, wasn't he? Yes, correct. Hashirama Senju was the first Hokage. She smiled at him. Glad he still remembered the names of the leaders of their village. While she never told him about anything shinobi related, general knowledge as who was their previous village leader was something she didn't stop from telling him. And when, well, you have four massive stone faces staring down at you every day, you tend to get curious at what they are. Now then, as I was saying. That all started to change when they both met. Obviously, since the times were so violent, both of them didn't reveal their names, but a friendship was born between the two of them over time. One day, without their knowledge, they both were discovered by their younger brothers. Madara's younger brother Izuna and Hashirama's younger brother too. Hashirama Senju, the second Hokage, right. Naruto cut her mother off and continued for her as he remembered that much. Well done. That was correct, dear. She couldn't stop herself from smiling at how invested he looked in the story. Whether it was a good thing or not, for now, she didn't care. She just continued to tell him. As they were both discovered, their fathers and both their younger siblings jumped in for a battle. Since neither of them was willing to fight at that moment, a mutual back-off was decided, but with a promise that they will continue this, and their friendship was over. As time passed, both sides grew strong. Time and time again, both of them fought, neither gaining an upper hand. But one day, everything changed. Tobirama killed Izuna. He killed him. His eyes going wide with a look of utter horror etched on his face. Yes, dear. Tobirama killed Madara's younger brother, Izuna. But why would he do that? Because those were times like that, Naruto. Every day countless deaths happened. It was a very bloody time. If someone just said they are from the Uchiha clan in front of a Senju unknowingly, they would be killed. Likewise, the same happened if someone said they were a Senju in front of an Uchiha. It was a ruthless era, Naruto. Only the strong survived then, unlike today, where everyone lives relatively peacefully. Killing was the norm then. It truly was a heinous era. She could only imagine the horrors the people of that time would have to face every day. No children were safe. No elders were safe. Everyone just prayed that they could live to see another day. Just thinking about that time was enough to make her shudder. That's horrible. So horrible. Why would anyone want to kill another person? That's just wrong. This is the exact reason she never wanted him to become a shinobi. Her son has a very simplistic way to see the world. He has a very simple moral compass, it's either good or bad, there is no in between for him. While every child has a similar moral compass, her son was different. Other people change with time. They see things, they do things that changes them. Her son just lacked the capacity to change his heart. His was a very, very gentle heart. leagues more so than herself. Well, she had become a soft person, he was born a soft-hearted person. There is a difference. A major difference. People who are born with such souls tend to have a very simple moral compass. Whenever they see something that is wrong in front of them, they jump in between to correct that wrong. It wouldn't matter to them if the person who is doing the wrong thing is their comrade or is it happening out of necessity. They would jump. A shinobi's very life revolved in a gray world. Theft, deceit, torture, murder, or anything you could think of, it was not considered wrong as long it was a mission. People like her son simply aren't suited for that life. When people like her son change, they never change for good in this line of work. Their spirits get broken. They become a hollow shell of what they were previously. What mother would want that for her son? She certainly did not. Earlier, when she had told him about her teammate's death, she had told him just that. He died. She didn't elaborate on it. A child's mind works differently than an adult's, naturally. Usually, when they are told something, they believe in it. Unless they are very interested in it, they won't question you on it. When she had told him her teammate died, he didn't ponder about it. He just registered the words he died and left it at it. He didn't find the obvious meaning behind those words because his brain simply didn't want to. Now, when she outright told him that someone killed some other, his utterly revolted expression was something she had expected. Like I said, dear, times were different then. If you didn't kill first, then someone else will kill you. That's just how the times were then. She explained to him gently, again. Not that would do anything good to him judging by his revolted expression. That's just wrong, ma, so wrong. I never said it was right, did I, Naruto? It's just you have to do what you have to do to survive, dear. That is one thing that will never change. In time, you will learn, you will come to understand that fact. But I will never kill anyone, he mumbled softly while looking down. Nobody is asking you to do that, dear. Unless you decide to become a shinobi, that is. She wisely kept that thought to herself for now. The silence descended between them. It wasn't pleasant, nor it was suffocating. It was just that a silence between them. She heaved a sigh and broke the silence. After Tobirama killed Izuna, Madara lost his will to fight. Naturally, his first thought would be that Hashirama would kill him, but that didn't happen. Hashirama instead offered him his hand, offering his friendship again and a wish for a truce to be between them. Bitter from the loss of his brother, Madara rejected it and instead, he gave an ultimatum to Hashirama that if he really wanted a truce, either kill himself or kill his brother. Naruto's grimace deepened if that was even possible. Everyone was just focused on killing and more killing. He was hating this more and more by the second. Bakara continued. Against all odds, Hashirama surprised Madara again. He started preparing to take his own life, he even told everyone his will to not hurt any Uchiha after he died. Just when he was about to kill himself, Madara stopped him. From then on, a truce was formed between them. For the first time, Uchiha and Senju came together. Eventually, they both built a village together, the village came to be known as the Ville. The village hidden in the leaves, right. So this village was created by Madara Uchiha. He was one of the founders of it. A sliver of happiness seeped in his clear sapphire eyes. A tinge of excitement finally coursing through his body after the long morbid tale. A thin smile came on her face as she saw him gaining some of his energy back, she nodded. Yes, Madara Uchiha was the co-founder of this village alongside Hashirama Senju. Furthermore, he was the one who had named this village. Not very long after clans started to come here to settle down, and before long, the village was blooming. Things were finally starting to look good for everyone except they weren't, for Madara at least. What happened? Every positive emotion he felt moments prior seeping out of his body. Madara felt as if his clans and his position was being threatened in the village. Hashirama being named the Hokage didn't help either. Day by day, his bitter feelings started returning. He tried to rally his fellow clan members, but no one wanted more bloodshed, content as everyone was after finally being freed from the war. In the end, he left the village. Filled with bitter emotions, he left. Oh, a despondent expression remained on his face. But that isn't the end of it, you know. It isn't. There was no energy in his reply. He had already given up on this story. It was just so sad. No, dear, it isn't. She heaved a heavy sigh at seeing his despondent expression. Regardless, she continued. One day, Madara Uchiha returned. Filled with negative emotions, he came back to kill Hashirama. Of course, with how Hashirama was, he tried to talk some sense into him. But nothing worked. In the end, they fought. Their battle changed the landscape. Mountains were destroyed, lands were torn, everything was destroyed in their wake. Their battle shook the lands itself. Both men unrivaled in power fought with everything they had. In the end, Hashirama won and Madara perished after the battle. That, dear, was the story of the man named Madara Uchiha. Again, a silence descended. She silently watched as her son remained unmoving and just kept looking down at the book. Seeing as he wasn't going to say anything, she broke the silence in a soft voice. In the end, Madara Uchiha was just a good man gone bad due to his circumstances. Perhaps if his brother never died, he may have not changed that much, but he did. Nowadays, Madara Uchiha is seen as something evil. An insurmountable pillar of power that no other Uchiha or anyone else, for that matter, can surpass. And, the village's first traitor. That is all that is left of him now. That's wrong. He mumbled. She blinked. I am sorry, honey. I didn't hear it. Can you please speak more clearly? That is wrong, he said with enough volume that she heard him. What is wrong, dear? People just forget about all the good he did. He was the one who founded this village, helped Lord First in building it, and yet, no one remembers it. That is wrong. Naruto, a soft sigh left her lips. Let me tell you something. In this world, if you commit 100 good deeds and 1 evil deed, you will be remembered by that 1 evil deed, not by the 100 good deeds you have done. People are judgmental. They will always judge you by your bad traits, no one cares for your good traits, as long as they find something bad in you. That was one ugly truth of humanity. The quicker he learned that, the better. That is just so wrong. You mean no matter how much good a person does, no one will care about that if that same person did a bad thing? He will be labeled a bad person forever? Yes. That is exactly what I meant, Naruto. That is just how society works. Then society is wrong. It is wrong, 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 wrong. So wrong. His head whipped side to side with every denial he made. Her eyes widened at the vitriol behind his words. A moment later, her eyes softened and a soft smile quirked her full lips upwards. Then don't be like them. Eh? He blinked, stupefied at her words. She giggled at his expression. What? Were you looking for something of a big solution for it? No, dear. You can't change people's minds so easily. Rather, just don't be like them. When people see something different, initially they try to reject it, but after a time, they want to be like that. Simply be that someone they look up to. She shook her head and sighed softly. Contrary to what everyone likes to think, major problems always don't require major solutions, you know. Sometimes, simple things like that work wonders. Just don't be like them. Don't judge anybody. Do that and you will already be leagues better than many. And when people see someone better than them, what do they try to do? They, try to be like that. He scratched his head in confusion, unsure of his answer. She nodded. Exactly. Not at first though, but eventually, they try to be like that. Everyone, in the end, wants to be the best of themselves, after all. So simply, don't be like that, okay? Okay. I will never judge someone. I will never be like them. I promise. He resolved himself. He will never judge someone like that. Never. There it was again. The pride blooming in her chest, warming her heart. Damn. She was an awesome parent. Why didn't she try parenthood earlier? Oh, right. She didn't get drunk enough before. Reaching across the table, she ruffled his spiky hair. Good boy. Never forget that promise, okay? Ruffling his hair once more, she sat back down in her seat. This time, the silence that descended between them was pleasant. While the pleasant atmosphere was all good and all, a constant nagging in the back of her mind gnawed at her being. This couldn't be the end of the conversation. She had a feeling this would turn into something she didn't like, and when it comes to Naruto, her feelings are never wrong. Never. So what was it that was making her uneasy? Ma? She tilted her head questioningly. Yes, dear. Earlier, you said that Madara Uchiha was someone unsurpassable, is that true? Yup. There it was. She could just see what was going inside that little head of his, and she did not like where this was going. At all. Gulping thickly, she nodded. Yes, dear. It is true. No one has been able to surpass him. Is it impossible to surpass him? Seeing his eyes twinkle with interest, she knew this was already over. Slowly, reluctantly, she shook her head. I wouldn't say it's impossible. It's just very, very hard to surpass him. So much so, no one has been able to do that. And he pointed to himself and tilted his head to the side. Surpass him? Her shoulders slumped heavily. Of course, it was this. She knew this was where it was going. Heaving a very heavy sigh, she asked him rather than answering. Why? Why do you want to surpass him, Naruto? Oh, a grin came on his face. I want to be like him. She choked on her own spit. What? Excuse me? Yeah. Unheeding to her aghast expression, he bobbed his head. I want to be like the good Madara. But Madara? What in the bloody hell is a good Madara? Just what was he talking about? Sweetie, what exactly is a good Madara? Like you told me, Ma, at first, Madara Uchiha was a good man, right? She nodded her head slowly to his question. Yes. Naruto bobbed his head to himself. I want to exactly be like the good Madara. He was strong and loving. I want to be exactly like that. Strong and loving like him. I don't want to be like the bad Madara he turned into, but I want to be like the good Madara he was. She looked at him with an incredulous expression. Good Madara. Bad Madara. What was this? How can you distinguish a person into two parts for your convenience? But this was just so him. Separating the good and bad apart. And setting the good as a goal for himself. This was something perhaps only her son was capable of doing. Who else can say they want to be like the good Madara? No one, that's who. Still, no matter how ridiculous it sounded, it was a good goal. No one can deny Madara was a very loving individual towards his brother, and he was strong. Ridiculously so. If her son wanted to be like that, well, she has no problem with so no. No. She did. She actually has a very big problem with this. But that aside for the moment, she still has a question for him. Why do you want to surpass him in power, Naruto? That was a thing she didn't quite understand. Being like the good Madara is all good and all, but what purpose will it serve him? Gods forbid, did he finally decide to become a shinobi or something? Because no one has ever done it before. He answered her with a look of why are you even asking this, isn't it obvious? That's your reason. Try as she might, she couldn't hide the hint of ridiculousness seeping in her tone. Yup. His head bobbed in emphasis. No other reason besides that. I don't know, he crossed his arms in front of his chest as a thoughtful look appeared on his face. But it sounds cool to do something no one has ever done it before, you know. Okay. It was decided. Her son is a little weird. Definitely a little weird. He wanted to surpass the Madara Uchiha because it was cool. Cool, yup. She gives up. She was done with this. Okay, honey. You can do whatever you like. I won't stop you. Nope. All kinds of nope. A full house of nopes. She was done with this shit. If he wanted to surpass Madara freaking Uchiha because it was cool, let him. Thank you, Ma. You're the best. Naruto cheered. MHM. She nodded absent-mindedly, feeling detached to the sheer ridiculousness of the situation. Abruptly, Naruto stopped in his cheering, a look of confusion marring his features. Ma, how do I surpass him? She blinked. You train, dear. Confusion intensified. In what? Everything, basically. She hummed and thought at that. Madara was good at almost everything, I think. So if you want to surpass him, you have to do all that. Oh. Okay. He nodded slowly. A look of thoughtfulness appeared and he looked at her curiously. Will you help me, Ma? I don't know what that everything is, so will you help me? Of course, dear. Do you even have to ask? Regardless of the ridiculousness of the situation, it was a good goal. He wanted to become strong and a good person, what else can she ask of him? And if he was willing, she would do her damned best to help him. I can surpass him, right, Ma? A bit of uncertainty creeped out through his happy visage. I don't know, honey. She didn't mince her words. Giving false hope was one thing a parent shouldn't do, or maybe only she thought like this. Regardless, she saw fit to tell him straight, like she always did. It's never been done before for a reason, you know. It's going to be really hard to do that, but I do believe if you want to, you might be able to surpass him. Nothing is truly impossible if you put in enough effort. Are you willing to put in enough effort? MHM. I am, Ma. A broad grin of excitement was her answer. It will be very tough, dear. Are you sure? He outright laughed this time. Come on, Ma. I am, just accept it. Alright, I will train you. For better or worse, she accepted it. He might surpass him or he might not, but he will be able to say at least he tried. She knew a major part of him was thinking of this as a game, but to her, this was the best opportunity to teach him some much-needed self-defense in this war-torn world. If he truly put in the effort, she would also do her best and take this seriously, and she knew her son never did anything half-heartedly. It was either putting in maximum effort or no effort whatsoever. Going by his cheering, he was going to put maximum effort this time. Though a question still nagged at her being, and she voiced it out after he calmed down after his cheering. Naruto, are you planning on becoming a shinobi? Eh? He looked at her in surprise at her question, but he quickly shook his head. Nope. Shinobi sounds like a bad thing. Not doing it. Nah. Thank goodness. A weight was immediately lifted off her shoulders. This was good. This was definitely good. So much so, a smile came on her face. That's good, dear. Okay, he scratched his head in confusion, not understanding why his mother suddenly looked so happy. He shrugged his shoulders. She was happy, that's all that mattered to him, the reason behind her happiness didn't matter to him. A few seconds of silence passed between them and he started squirming in his position. Finally not being able to take it any longer, he blurted out. When are we going to start? She looked at him in confusion. Start what, dear? Training, Ma. What else? He threw his arms up in exasperation. Oh, that. Understanding dawned her and a look of amusement came on her pale visage. Aren't you hungry, dear? Nope. I am not hungry. Let's start try. Rumble. Traitor. Naruto scowled down at his stomach. His face started going red as his mother laughed. He huffed and looked away. Not funny. Wakara tried her best to restrain her giggles, but she failed. Horribly. He looked just so cute when embarrassed. When she finally did stop, he resembled a tomato. A tomato with blonde hair, that is. A playful look filtered on her face. "Sue, hungry?" He didn't look at her but slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. "Yeah." She grinned at him, enjoying his flustered expression to the fullest. She questioned him in a faux innocent tone. "But what about training, dear, don't you want to start it? You're a meanie, ma." The flustered glare he gave her was way too cute. Perhaps she was a sadist too. Meh. Who cares? Laughing, she stood up from her seat, going back to making dinner for both of them. Even as her son cutely grumbled behind her, it took quite a while before she calmed down. Still, there was that nagging in the back of her mind. It should have quelled down after hearing his answer about becoming a shinobi, but it didn't. Maybe it was a mistake deciding to train him, after all. But how was she supposed to know this was the start of it all? How was she supposed to know that the decision he had made on a whim is going to shape him into the man he will become? How was she supposed to know that she would be the reason he will one day surpass everyone? How was she supposed to know that she was the reason he will finally decide to become something she didn't want to? For now, she knew nothing. In time, she will learn. She would come to accept it. But for now, she remained blissfully unaware. Unaware of the maelstrom she would unleash on this world. Unaware of the things that maelstrom would do. How he would change things. Would change people. Would change the very world. But yes, for now, she remained blissfully unaware. Because if she knew the things he would go through, she would have never accepted to train him. Never. Hiruzen Saratobi was a good man at heart. And like any other man, he had done many things he regretted. Letting his sensei face all of the elite Kinkaku force of the Lightning Village by himself was the first one. His second biggest regret came in the form of willingly allowing the Uzumaki clan's downfall. If he had sent reinforcements then, their own village would have suffered. For the sake of his village, he let their oldest allies sink down their dooms. His third biggest regret was never being a parent to his own son, Asuma. Fourth came in the form of letting his former student flee when he should have captured him. The fifth was not being by the side of his wife during her final moments. Sixth was letting his successor die where he believed he should have been the one to die in his place. All these regrets, the mistakes he made, perhaps might be atoned in the end. But the thing he had done now. The deed he had committed for the good of his village, he knew, he was now a sinner. He was no longer redeemable. What had he done that he considered himself irredeemable, you ask? He had spat in the faces of his successor and his wife's last wishes. He had discarded all the promises he had made. Disregarded a dying mother's pleading. Disregarded a weeping father's requests. He had disregarded them, all for the sake of the good of this village. He had made a young girl's life hell willingly. Turned his head away when his old teammate had leaked the information of that said girl being the monster's container to the entire village. Had watched him passively as the girl was thrown on streets, ate from the garbage, lived on the streets, and suffered the unjust from the villagers on a daily basis. All because he wanted her complete loyalty. It was simple psychology, really. When you have lived the entirety of your life alone, suffering from the hate of others, you will latch onto the first person that shows you kindness. They will become the world for you. You would feel indebted to them for saving you from that dark place. The same thing happened with the girl's mother. She had been alone. No one to look after her. After her clan got massacred, she was even lonelier. From the shadows, he had devised a plan. A plan to earn the girl's complete loyalty to the village. Minato was the most loyal and talented kid of the generation, with the hope of becoming the Hokage. Who better than that for the lonely girl? It also helped that Minato was already taken with a girl. So he devised a plan. A secret mission was assigned to his personal Anbu unit. A piece of information was accidentally leaked near Minato. And like that, the plan was set in motion. Really? Would you really believe Ichnin, a very talented one, but still Ichnin, in the end would be able to defeat 6 lightning villages Jumnin? PFFT. Don't make him laugh. It was all his plan. If the kidnapping of Ijinchuriki really happened, it would be the cause of a war, no questions asked. No one would get away with just a slap on the wrist. Really, sometimes, people just ignored the facts right in front of them. And like that, he had ensured Kushina's loyalty without moving a finger by himself. So now you may be wondering. So it was him all along. Always has been. But of course, if someone came to possess this information, he would have to put a kunai in their backs. A quick painless death would be granted to whoever came to possess this information. While you may call him barbaric for his actions, he was a leader. The Hokage of this village. Everything was second to him. His feelings, his family, everything. The village always comes first. Always. The minute Minato had made his own daughter the living container for the 9 tails, he had already sealed her fate. She was the war deterrent of their village. The thing that kept the power balance in check. So really, can you blame him? Truly. He was the Hokage, after all. He was not Hiruzen Saratobi while he wore this hat, he was the leader of this village. The supreme ruler of the population. At the end of the day, one's happiness didn't outweigh thousands under his rule. So yes, while he knew what he was doing was irredeemable, he was not opposed to it. His sensei, Tobirama Senju, was a militaristic person. Nothing was too far for him as long as it benefited the village. Really, if the man can devise a jutsu to bring people back from their eternal rests for his own convenience, doesn't that speak volumes for what he was willing to do? Naturally, a person like that wouldn't be well liked by the population. So Hiruzen chose to be like his sensei's brother, Hashirama Senju outwardly. While dumb in military affairs, he was the kind of person everyone in the village loved. While he inherited his ideals from his sensei, he chose to be like his sensei's brother. Thus, he was well liked by the population. It wasn't like anything he did was an act. No. He genuinely loved his village. Everyone living in it was his family. A family he had to protect. It was his duty, after all. Everything he did, no matter how barbaric it may be, it was for the good of his village, after all. The only thing that separated him from his old teammate was he was not power hungry. He would never put his self-interest above the village. And without any hesitation, he would lay his life down for the village. His will of fire burned brighter than Danzo's, that was why he was the Hokage, not him. But even he had his limits in what he was willing to do. Some things were too much to stomach even for him. But manipulation, he was not above it. The people who were bowing to him and greeting him respectfully as he walked through the streets of his village hated the girl with a passion. Initially, it was not what he wanted. Minato wanted his daughter to be seen as a hero, but even he knew that was just a desperate attempt at Minato's part to convince himself that his daughter would not be hated and he could die with some internal peace. But Danzo had made sure that would not happen. It was a catastrophic day in the history of the village, thousands of lives were lost. Countless of the houses were destroyed. Numerous families were left torn apart. People were sad. They were angry. They needed something. Something to put their blame on. A scapegoat, if you will, or else the village would not have recovered. No one would have been able to look past their grief if the things continued like that. Danzo had leaked that information willingly for that purpose. To get their village back on their feet. It had worked. Everyone started blaming the month-old babe for everything that has happened. Of course, if he so wanted, he could have quelled everything. Nipped the problem from the bud. It was well within his power. His word was the law, after all. But he hadn't. Instead, he passed a law that no one would speak of what the girl contained. Just that. Everything else, they can do. All within his plan, of course. If the girl knows true pain, suffered from soul-shattering loneliness, then the young child can learn to be compassionate to others. Once she is saved from that, she could become truly kind. An endless well of forgiveness. But of course, she could go down the wrong path too, but that was why he was here for. To guide her to the right path. Initially, his plan was to let the girl live on the streets for a longer duration. But unforeseen events had happened and he had been forced to intervene earlier. A pair of Uchiha had helped the girl. Uchiha, of all people. That did not sit well with his plan. Even the smallest of things can leave a lasting impression, so he had intervened quickly, lest the girl dwelled on that strange pair more than necessary. It was subtle manipulation from there on his part. Telling the girl stories about the glory of all the Hokages. How they were heroes. And every time, she became more and more interested in it. He wanted her to aspire for the position of Hokage, so she will set her goal to get recognized by everyone. Forgiving the villagers in the process too. And he could say without any doubt, he was succeeding in it. He was well versed in manipulation, after all. He had pulled countless people out of their misery and made them aware of the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture, you ask? Why, it is the will of fire, of course. The creed to love their village as it was family. To cherish the village as someone would cherish their significant other. Putting everything second and making the village their priority. The creed every shinobi under his rule lived by. The creed that is ingrained in everyone's mind since they joined the academy. That is the will of fire. And he firmly believed he was well on his way to ingrain that creed in the young girl's mind. It was his firm belief that he was succeeding in putting the girl on the right path, that his wooden sandal-clad feet slowly carried him up the flight of stairs. The day was the day when he will get the girl to join the academy, and knowing her, she would be overjoyed to learn that news. She would finally get the chance to interact with her peers. Maybe she will forge a bond. A bond that will strengthen her loyalty to the village. You might think that with what he was doing to the girl, he must not care about her. No. He actually cared for her. The Hiruzen in him actually liked the girl very much. But as the Hokage, he had a duty to uphold and he couldn't let his emotions get in between them. Despite being the Hokage, he always have good intentions for everyone around. But as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So yes, all things considered, he was a good man. At least, he still liked to believe that. A wrinkled, aged hand reached up and gently rapped the knuckles against the worn surface of the door. Patiently, he waited. As the soft creaking of the worn floorboard became clearer and clearer, he put up his practiced smile. His grandfatherly smile that he was known for nowadays, one that could put many at ease. The door opened partially with a small creaking of the wood, a lone violet eye peeking from the gap. The eye widened and the door was closed before it was opened fully, revealing the young girl behind it. Subconsciously, his smile widened a tad bit at the sight of her. "Good afternoon, Narumi." XXXXXXXXXX. Narumi Uzumaki could finally say she was happy for once in her life. The reason, you ask? She finally had a roof over her head. It was a worn-down single bedroom, a very small apartment, but it was hers. She finally had a warm bed to sleep on again. Though the mattress was a little hard, she didn't care. Because this bed was hers. She was finally able to take a proper bath. With soap. Can you believe it? She certainly couldn't. Even though the water was always freezing cold due to no water heater in the bathroom, she didn't care. Because that bathroom was hers. There was a very small kitchen too. But sadly, she didn't know how to cook. She was given a few cookbooks to learn cooking, but, well, she couldn't read them. So the kitchen was basically useless to her. Oh, do you know, the mighty Nine-Tails is also illiterate. Yeah, a real shocker. I am not illiterate, brat, don't lump me in the same category as someone as brain dead as you. I simply didn't deem your worthless species as language worthy enough of a mighty being such as I, to spend any effort on it. The Titanic vixen sniffed in vain from the confines of her mind. A look of visible confusion came on her face. Then how do you know how to speak it? She paused, then snapped. And I am not brain dead, furball. TCH. The vixen clicked her tongue in annoyance. Isn't that obvious, you dumb brat? I have lived for nearly 1,000 years now, I will certainly know how to speak the same language as your pathetic species. Though you worthless meatbags continued to change it bit by bit, I was able to adapt to it easily, since I am vastly superior to your race. Oh. That made sense. She has lived for so long, she will know how to speak. A vein pulsed on her forehead not a moment later. Why do you keep lumping me as the same as everyone? Aren't I different from them? No. The tailed beast inside her scoffed. You meatbags are all the same. Greedy and pathetic. None of you are different. Hey. Narumi outwardly reacted and hopped on her feet, getting off the bed. I am different from them. I unlocked the seal unlike the previous containers, you said so yourself that no one ever did that before. That would definitely make me different than everyone else for you. Should, you dumb brat, not would. The vixen corrected her in a superior tone. Further proving in her mind how superior she was to this brat of pathetic species in intellect by correcting her in her own language. Conveniently ignoring the fact that she was talking to a 6-year-old child who nobody ever took the time to teach anything. Her cheeks burned and she huffed in annoyance. Just answer me, furball. Am I not different from everyone else? No. You're not. You're the same as the rest. Her booming voice was cold. Very harsh in its nature. And it stung. The words hurt Narumi. Bee-boo, but I unlocked the sea. You only unlocked the seal because I offered you a deal. You unlocked the seal because opening it proved beneficial to you, in the end. The sealed chakra monster inside her snorted in derision. Whether it be consciously or subconsciously, you meatbags only do things that further benefits you. Because you meatbags are selfish. Utterly greedy at your base. No one of your pathetic species acts selflessly. Every single thing you meatbags do is only to further benefit yourselves in one way or another. The vixen shook her head in utter disappointment. I have lived for so long and never in my life have I ever met someone who is truly selfless. Heh. I doubt there would ever be someone like that, considering how utterly selfish you pathetic monkeys are. I am not selfish. Tears stung at the corner of her eyes at hearing her tenant's harsh words. Oh, please. Spare me the melodrama. The vixen scoffed. You only accepted the deal because I offered to help you in exchange for a measly thing as providing amusement to me. I know you never would have accepted the deal if I didn't offer to help you after all. Even though Narumi couldn't see it, she somehow knew a mocking grin was on the vixen's snout. Who would want to do anything with, what did you call me when you first saw me? Ah. Yes. A monster, right, brat. If the previous words hurt, this was something else. Her gut twisted at remembering what she had said, more like screamed the moment she saw her. The entire village saw her as a monster, called her such. And yet, she was so quick to call some other the same. This just proved it, didn't? She was, in the end, the same. In her defense, what little there was, anyone would react the same. She could bet on it, no one would ever say something else. The entity inside her was as frightening as it was majestic in its entirety. She had been terrified the moment those slitted ruby red eyes that were 5-6 times bigger than her had focused on her. She had outright fainted the moment those razor-sharp teeth capable of tearing anything and everything had been revealed to her in the form of a vulpine grin. She had shrunken herself the moment she had spoken to her for the first time. She would be lying if she said she wasn't afraid of the humongous entity inside her. No. She was still terrified of her. There was still a part of her that thought of the being inside her as a terrifying monster. But the larger part, oh. Did I hurt the poor little girl's feelings? Sorry, not fucking sorry. The nine-tailed vixen sneered, lips curling back in disgust. That's another thing about you insolent beings that I utterly loathe. Always so quick to judge someone. So quick to put a label of some identity on someone. Judging, always judging. You pathetic creatures probably judge more than the death god judges dead people's souls. Filled with such arrogance. Who gives you worthless mortals the right to judge someone, huh? A short angry breath that would have upheaved several trees. Left past her gritted teeth. Another long exhale calmed the vixen's anger. Titanic shoulders rolled into a shrug. But I suppose I can't blame you for calling me a monster. After all, if Narumi had been inside the seal, she would have bore witness to the nightmare-inducing, absolutely bone-chilling, menacing grin on the gigantic vixen's face. I am a monster. Her entire titanic body shook deep, rich, cruel laughter exploded past her lips. Shaking the entire mindscape within Narumi with the intensity of it. Her laugh scared her. It terrified her. A deep primal fear rattled the very bones in her body. She was reminded again why she had called the entity inside her a monster then. Still. She forced the fear down. Bit by bit, it abated. Because now, a monster. Her laughter ceased. Rabbit-like ears perking up. What was that, brat? I said, Narumi steeled herself, small fingers balling up in tight fists. You're not a monster. Not anymore, to me, at least. Oh? What am I then? The vixen's voice dripped with amusement. As if she was getting told a hilarious joke and she couldn't wait to hear the punchline. You're my friend. I consider you my friend. That's right. The larger part of her considered the massive chakra inside her friend. As much as the vixen scared her, she was also the only one who helped her. Always correcting her if she said something wrong or did something wrong. While the smugness of her voice always grated on her nerves, she didn't mind that. Truthfully, she didn't know what a friend meant, but she still considered the tailed beast inside her soul friend. Always silent inside her and then. Friend. PFFTT. The vixen toppled back on her back and rolled around laughing. Massive tails thrashed on the floor, sending water flying everywhere. Truly brat. You're successfully completing your end of the deal. Friends. Narumi's face fell. A pang of hurt clenching her heart. I meant that, you know. Oh? The vixen paused, raising a bemused brow. Are you being serious, brat? She frantically nodded. I want to be your friend, you know. Then stop deluding yourself, brat. Contrary to what she hoped, the vixen's voice was once again filled with coldness. You and I can never be friends. I would never stoop so low to befriend a being of your pathetic species. The sooner you get that ridiculous notion out of your meager mind, the better. Once again, whatever hope that had built up in her heart shattered, like it always does. Was it wrong to wish for something good for once? Was it wrong that she wanted something good to happen to her for just once? It isn't wrong, brat. It's just, your wish for us being friends is ridiculous. Wish for something better instead, like, ask for some brain. Gods no, you really need that. Hearing the mocking laughter inside her mind, something snapped. Her tightly balled up fist shook at her sides. Why can't you ever say something nice to me for once? Why do you always have to be so rude? What have I done? Are you done, brat? Cause if your half-lidded disinterested eyes narrowed into angry slits. Shut the fuck up. Don't you ever use that tone with me, get that, you puny insect. I am not your lover, parent, friend or your teacher who will listen to your oh woe is me rants. Get that through that thick skull of yours before I stop being hospitable to you. Angry tears rolled down her whiskered cheeks. I hate you. I hate you so much. Ha. Don't they all, brat? The vixen inside laughed to herself. Narumi threw herself back on the bed and buried her face in the pillow. There, she cried again. Like she did every other night. She actually hated crying. Loathed it, more like it. Because crying was for the weak and she was a strong girl. But crying always managed to make her heart lighter. And she loved it when her heart didn't feel heavy. Loved it when she didn't feel like it was suffocating in there. Sometimes, she wondered if it would be better if she didn't exist at all. All it would take is a cut across her neck and it would be over. Just like that, it would be all over. She would be free. Free from all the hate. Free from all this pain. Free from everything. She would be able to meet her parents if she died. Would be able to ask them why did they give her to the bloody fourth bastard. Did they hate her so much they made her a sacrifice. For this village. This pathetic cesspool of a village. And best of all, she would be able to murder that fourth bastard. She wouldn't care if the dead couldn't be killed, she would find a way to kill him all over again. Slowly and painfully. Very painfully. So very painfully. If she were paying enough attention, she would have heard the titanic vixen inside her laughing. It was a good thing she wasn't paying enough attention because it was a very, very dark laugh. Yeah, she could do all that. Just a simple quick cut. It would be all over. She would be free. Alright, that's enough of you. Her inner beast's voice did the trick. It snapped her out of whatever she was thinking. Though, hearing her voice brought a scowl on her face. What do you want now? Listen, you idiotic brat. She took a very deep breath in order to calm down, lest she says something that will push the girl over the edge. If you don't remember, we're both connected. Should I spell it out for you? Maybe I should do just that, considering what an idiot you're. Listen up, brat, you die, I die. Get it? A totally disinterested expression came over Narumi's face that no child should be able to possess. And I should care, because you may want to die, but I don't, okay? If you're a coward and want to take the coward's way, oh, take that back. Narumi hissed through gritted teeth. A vulpine grin came over the vixen's face. Oh. Did I touch a nerve there? I said. Take that back. I am not a coward. She was not. She was anything but a coward. I don't know. The vixen hummed in fake confusion. What you were thinking of sounded pretty cowardly to me. Quitting when the going gets tough, that's what cowards do. Isn't that what you were thinking of, coward? Her eyes went wide and she looked like she was just slapped. Well, physically she didn't get slapped, but her pride, what little she actually has, certainly got slapped. The vixen knew she had her. Never one to miss her chance, she pounced like the vixen she was. But I suppose I can't blame you. You pathetic fleshlings are pretty cowardly. It wouldn't come as a surprise that you're also just another one, like the rest. So go on, coward, do it. End your suffering. Free yourself. Her little fists gripped the bedsheets beneath her in a white-knuckle grip as her body shook with emotions. Seeing the effect she was having, she went for the killing blow, let's say. But even if you did die, you will not be able to murder that fourth bastard, you know. Because that will require courage, something, her vulpine grin stretched from ear to ear. A coward like you do not possess, isn't that right, coward? Narumi went terribly still. Face still buried in the pillow. She did not move, did not even breathe. For a moment, just a moment, the chakra beast inside her felt her grin vanishing. She didn't push the brat too far, did she? Took her taunting beyond what was okay. An unsettling feeling started gnawing at her being. Oi, brah. The tailed beast blinked in bafflement as the brat was suddenly inside the seal. Marching towards her, no. More like stomping towards her. Every stomp of her tiny feet was accompanied with a hefty splash of water. A thunderous expression etched on her whiskered face. Unheeding to the utter bafflement of the gigantic vixen, Narumi boldly stomped towards her and closed the distance between them. Once within the distance, Narumi canted her head up to look in the vixen's slitted ruby red eye and repeatedly jabbed her finger at the humongous furry paw the vixen was resting her face on with every word she spoke. Do not call me a coward again. Understand, furball? Slitted eyes narrowed at her container's tiny form. What would you do if I call you that, huh, coward? The gleam entered her violet eyes. I will kill myself. Ruby red eyes widened and narrowed in the same instance. The vixen hissed. Excuse me. You heard me, furball, don't call me a coward again or I will kill myself. You said so yourself. If I die, you die, right? So don't take that tone with me again, or else. The nine-tailed vixen gazed at her tiny container with a look of incredulousness. Did that brat just used her own words against her? Heh. He. A deep bellowing laugh straight from her belly burst past her maw. Tears of mirth gathered in her slitted eyes as she laughed. While the vixen laughed, Narumi on the other hand, well, wah. Stop it. Too loud. Stoop. She wailed. Covering her ears with all her might lest her eardrums rupture from the incredibly loud sound. The ha 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 truly brat, you continue to amuse me. She wiped her stray tears with the use of her tails. Handy things, aren't they? A vulpine grin stretched on her maw, revealing all of her razor-sharp huge teeth. Yes. That is the utterly foolish but slightly above average brat I know. Heh. To think you have the guts to use my own words against me. For once, Narumi didn't find those razor-sharp teeth intimidating despite them being less than a foot away from her. Instead, she found herself gawking at the grinning vixen. Wah, what do you why? The orange vixen snorted. Don't make yourself look even dumber, brat, your face is dumb enough as it is. Hey. Ignoring the brat's protesting, the chakra beast leaned her head down until she was close enough to the brat to look her in the eye. But credit where it is due, brat. Not many have the guts to do what you just did. Almost all of the pathetic flesh bags faint in my presence or soil themselves. And yet, here you are, ordering me. Ha. You know what, just for that, I will tell you something. Oh okay, Narumi felt a little overwhelmed at the moment. Unsure of how to react. Because for the first time in life, she was getting praised. From the vixen inside her, of all people. You want to be my friend, don't you? Narumi's eyes widened and she frantically nodded. willingly ignoring how much effort it took for the vixen to say that sentence or how she looked like she had swallowed a lemon while saying that. Then I will tell you the way to befriend me. Do something that you humans seem incapable of doing. Do something selfless. I don't care what it is or for whom it is. Something truly selfless that you humans seem utterly incapable of doing. Something that will not make you gain anything. Something that is done for just another's sake. Just once I want to see something like that. If you were able to do it, however unlikely that may be, who knows, maybe, just maybe, I will even tell you my name too. Narumi looked up at the orange vixen with a wide-eyed look. Utterly gobsmacked that she will even consider her hope of being friends after the harsh words the vixen said earlier. There was also something in her words she didn't understand. It very closely felt like the same thing she felt when she looked at other parents. What was the word? Logging. No. Loaning. No. Longing. Yes. Longing. It felt like that, but there was also something she didn't understand, yet. Regardless, there was one more thing she didn't quite understand. What does selfless mean? The massive vixen groaned. Of course, the brat wouldn't understand the meaning of half the words she spoke. Nonetheless, she explained it as best as she could in a way the dumb brat would understand. Being selfless means doing something without expecting anything in return. Nor fame, money, or some such. Do you understand that, you idiotic brat? Hey. I am not an idiot. And besides, a smug look came on the whiskered face of the girl. That sounds super easy. I can totally do that. Prepare to tell your name to me, furball, cause I am going to do that real quick, you know. Heh, the orange chakra creature snorted at the naivety of the young girl in front of her. If it was that easy, brat, I wouldn't have asked you of that. Titanic shoulders rolled into an uncaring shrug. But who am I to burst that little bubble of yours? Go ahead, if you think it is truly that easy, then it shouldn't be a problem. Right, brat. Something about that shark-like grin of her unnerved her. But she wasn't going to back down now. Oh no. Planting her feet firmly in the shallow water, Narumi looked up at the vixen with a determined look. Of course, furball. You just wait and see, I will do that real quick, you know. Ahaha, a condescending laugh came straight from her throat. We will see, brat, we will see. Just for a moment, Narumi faltered. The vixen in front of her looked so sure that she was never going to succeed. It couldn't be that hard, right? Doing something for some other sounded really easy. Then why did she feel like it's going to be a really tough thing? Why did she feel she was never going to succeed? She shook her head. Bad thoughts. Unneeded thoughts. Go. Go away. She was going to succeed. Surely, it couldn't be that hard, right? Right. Everything aside, something suddenly clicked in her mind. She looked up at the vixen's face with narrowed eyes. Did you say all of that earlier to make me feel good? The orange vixen immediately averted her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. Slowly, a grin came on her whiskered face. You're so slewborn, furball. Just accept it, you wanted to make me feel good. She rolled her eyes. It's stubborn, you dumb brat. And no. I couldn't care less about how you were feeling. Narumi giggled. Oh. You don't have to lie to me. No need to be so stubborn. Just tell me you were worried, you know. The massive-tailed beast twitched. Right. Out, now. Narumi didn't relent. I always knew you cared, furball. Now. A tail came forward and pushed the brat back, earning a startled squawk from her. But instead of falling in the shallow water, the brat vanished from in front of her. HMPH. The vixen grumbled as she rested her head back on her paws and closed her eyes. Annoying brat. With a jolt, Narumi realized she was back on her bed. Rolling over, she giggled. Stubborn furball. She winced as the sunlight fell directly on her face through the window beside her bed. Squinting her eyes, she raised her hand towards the sun. Shadow of her hand appeared on her face as she looked at the sun from in between the gaps of her splayed fingers. Bright, too bright, actually. Just like him. Every time she looked at the sun, she always remembered him. The strange boy she met almost 4 months ago. It was strange. His smile was brighter than even the sun. And the older woman with him, her smile was warmer than the sun. How was that even possible? Why did they smile at her? It was a question, even now constantly remained in her mind. They were Uchiha, why did they smile at her? Uchihas didn't smile. They grunted. They brooded. They scowled. They smirked. Smile. Never. Whenever she had encountered an Uchiha, she had always been in an extremely bad mood afterwards. They were just so gloomy. And then, there was him. Totally different from everyone she met. So vibrant compared to every other bland-looking Uchihas. Just what was up with him? Why couldn't she get him out of her mind? Now that she thought about it, everything good started happening after she ran into him. Not even 3 days later, she got her own home. Started getting monthly spending no matter how little it was. Got new, proper clothes. And, the best of all, she got to eat proper food. She was finally able to say goodbye to food from the garbage. For a time at least. Was he some kind of good luck charm for her? Considering how bright he was, he might as well be. No. She shook her head. He was an Uchiha in the end. He couldn't be good. No. He just couldn't. Uchihas were the worst. He was the same as rest, right? Everything was just an act, right? If it was, then why did it hurt so much? Why did her stomach flip whenever she thought about it all being an act? Why did she want it to be real? Not just an act. Just someone genuinely looking at her with a smile. More specifically, his smile. Was she allowed to hope? Could she hope? Just one time? Just this once? Could she hope his smile was real, not an act? Could she hope he would smile at her again? And again? And again? Could she? Please. Just this once. Let her hope. Just this once. Please. Just one final time. One last hope before she calls it quit. One final hope before she ends it all. Please. Just this once. Please. Rumble. Both of her hands crossed over her stomach and gripped her sides. She curled into a ball as her stomach growled for the umpteenth time since the morning. Hungry, she bemoaned. So hungry. Admittedly, all her money was gone. As in spent. Not a rim was left. More than half of it was used to pay the rent of this small apartment. The remaining half. Well, it wasn't much, honestly. And even then, half of the half was used to pay the water, electricity, and gas bills. What was left of it that she used for her food? The area in which she lived, near the red light district, shopkeepers didn't charge her extra compared to the posh area of the village. There, the prices for only her were 4 or 5 times higher, but here, people only cared for money, so no one charged her extra. She liked that. But even then, what little money that remained after paying for everything wasn't enough to buy her enough food for a month. 3 months ago, when she got her first monthly spending, she had been overjoyed. So much so, she had spent everything within a week and then ate from garbage for the rest of the month. But after that, she had been careful. Very careful. She had eaten 3 small meals every day for the first week. For the second week, she had eaten 2 small meals every day. For the third and half of the fourth week, she had eaten only a single meal every day. And after that, she was always out of money. She didn't feel like eating from garbage during the last days of the month. Not after eating proper food for months straight. So, she had opted to eat food straight from the forest for these last days. She had caught some fishes with the help of the vixen inside her and acquired some fruits and ate them. But today was different, she didn't have any energy left. She was feeling tired. Not in the mood of going out and spending hours looking for food for a single meal. Finding food for her was excessively difficult due to forest animals going berserk around her and she has to be on a constant lookout. She just didn't have enough energy to do that today. She was tired and hungry. So very hungry. So she did the only thing available to her at the moment. She closed her eyes and willed herself to sleep. It was an easy task since she was already feeling tired and it didn't take much time for her to fall asleep like the lazy vixen inside her. So yes, all things considered, she was finally happy. At least, she liked to believe what she felt was the emotion of happiness, because honestly, she didn't know what happiness felt like. XXXXXXXXX. Knock. 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 Narumi twitched when the sound of door knocking reached her ears. Reluctantly, she opened her eyes and rolled on her back. She smacked her lips as a yawn escaped her. Furball, who is it? Another yawn, not her own, rang in her mind. What is it, brat? Why are you disturbing my sleep? There is someone on the door, who is it? The vixen twitched. And you're asking me that because I don't feel like getting up. She whined. If it's someone important only then I will get up. So please. The long-suffering sigh left past the vixen's lips. Honestly, brat. You constantly find new ways to annoy me. Narumi beamed. Thank you. Whatever. Let's see. Oh ho ho ho. Well, her lips peeled back in a mirthful grin. If it isn't the kind old man. Look, brat, it's your favorite person. Probably came here to check up on you. How precious. An annoyed look came on her face. Oh, him. Yes, brat, him. A mirthful chuckle escaped her. Well, don't keep the old man waiting. Oh, and don't forget to look surprised when you see him. Yeah, Narumi grumbled as she pushed herself off the bed. Stretching once, Narumi strolled towards the door sluggishly. The nap helped, but she was still very tired and hungrier than before. Stopping before the door, Narumi heaved a sigh and put up her aloof look. She opened the door partially and feigned surprise by widening her eyes at the sight of the elderly man. She closed the door and removed the chain from the door. She heaved a final sigh. Here goes. She opened the door fully and gazed up at the elderly man with a blank look. The elderly man smiled at her kindly. Good afternoon, Narumi. Narumi knew it was a fake smile. When no one is there to smile at her and she can count the times people have smiled at her on a single finger. She knew what a real smile looked like. This was definitely a fake one. Still, she didn't let it deter her, she kept up the facade and gave a thin smile to the elderly man. Good afternoon Lord Hokage. Hiruzen chuckled. How many times do I have to tell you, Narumi, you can just call me old man. After all, that's what I am. A simple old man. You don't have to be so formal with me. A manipulating old man, more like it. The Vixen insider scoffed. Even though she agreed with her tenant's opinion, she didn't say anything about it, neither did she need to, because the Vixen knew everything she thought. She softly shook her head, red lock swaying with emotion. I can't, Lord Hokage, people wouldn't like that. Hiruzen kept his disappointment hidden well at a response. If there was one thing he didn't like about her, it was her reluctance at opening herself to him. But oh well, sooner or later she will, they all did. Giving her a good-natured smile he gestured toward the inside of her house. It's alright, Narumi. Though would you mind if I come inside? No, Lord Hokage, she stepped to the side and the old man walked past her with a quick pardon the intrusion and she closed the door behind them. As she walked behind the elderly man, she took note of how he was looking around her house as always. Why does he always look around so much? It's because observing one's living conditions tells a lot about the person, brat. Did you see how his eyes lingered on the plants and the dirty clothes lying on the ground? No she didn't, she was focusing on her tenant's words, after all. The Vixen rolled her eyes. Then learn to observe your surroundings better while we talk, brat. Anyways, the healthy plants tell him you're a responsible brat who can take care of things when you need to. Narumi puffed her chest out at the praise. But the way your clothes are thrown on the ground tells him you're also irresponsible. And just like that, she deflated. The Vixen chuckled. She couldn't let the brat have a big head, after all, not any more than she already does. It tells him that while you can take care of other things, you can't take care of yourself. In other words, you're responsible, yet irresponsible. Their face crunched in confusion. So am I responsible or am I irresponsible? I don't understand, furball. How can I be both? The Nine-Tails Vixen heaved a sigh. Leave it brat, you're not smart enough to understand. Hey. Her protest changed into genuine praise. But you sure know a lot about us humans, furball. Of course, brat. She scoffed. I have lived for such a long time, I know how you pathetic meatbags act. If I didn't come to understand your species' nature well enough as I do, I may not have come to hate you pathetic bunch as I do. Oh she further deflated at that. Do you hate me too? The Vixen stayed silent for some moments before she spoke, but it was with great reluctance she spoke. I don't hate you. Feeling the excitement bubbling up inside her host, she hastily added. But don't be mistaken, brat, you're still the same as rest. I have just learned to tolerate you. Yes. That's it. I just tolerate you, nothing more. Don't get any stupid idea in your head like if I care for you or something because I don't, okay. Try as she might, she couldn't stop herself from smiling. The Vixen huffed. HMPH. Stupid brat. It was with supreme effort Narumi stopped herself from giggling out loud in front of the old man, lest she makes herself look like a loon for laughing for no apparent reason. Hiruzen sat down on one of the chairs of the dining table. Having finished his inspection of her living conditions. A smile came on his wrinkled face at seeing her smiling at him. See? Everyone always comes around. Always. He chuckled good-naturedly when she just kept looking at him with a smile. Would you mind getting this old man a glass of water, Narumi? She blinked a few times and nodded slowly. Sure, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen slowly shook his head at the girl's behavior. She was just so happy to see him she even forgot to ask him for simple things like that. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't keep her mask up. Honestly, what an honest child she was. In reality, he couldn't be further from the truth. Why do I have to get him water? She walked towards her kitchen with an annoyed look on her face. Something to do with your stupid fleshling manners I think. Though a pause followed. Should I ask him to pay for that? Water isn't for free, you know. I don't think that's how manners work, brat. If she was the same as humans, a titanic bead of sweat would have rolled down the side of her furry face. And besides, as much as I am loath to admit it, you should simply do as he asks you for now, at least. After all, he is the one providing you with, well, everything. And as the saying goes. Don't kill the chicken that lays golden eggs. Wait. A look of shock came over her face as she filled the glass with water. There is a chicken that lays golden eggs, where is it? Tell me. A resounding smack rang in Narumi's mind as the Vixen slapped a tail against her face, followed by a loud rumbling groan. Why? Why did she tend to forget that T was a mere brat of 6 years old? Very mature for her age due to her circumstances, but still a dumb brat, nonetheless. Someone who didn't understand half the things she said. By no means that was the brat's fault, but still. A sigh full of tiredness left her titanic shoulders slumping. There's no chicken like that, brat. It's just a saying. Narumi's shoulders slumped. There goes a way to get easy money. Pity. What would you have done if you had a chicken that lays golden eggs, brat? Out of sheer curiosity, the Vixen asked. I would kill it, of course. She didn't even take a second to think about it and answered. Absent-mindedly, she set the glass of water in front of him. Here, Lord Hokage. Thank you, Narumi. Hiruzen accepted the water with a smile. Oh? So you would kill it? Even if the chicken laid a golden egg every day? She thought for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, I will still kill it. Why? The chakra entity kept her disappointment well concealed. Hiruzen silently observed Narumi as he slowly drank his water. He figured it out at the first meeting that the girl was someone who didn't like to talk much. She rarely talked more than was needed and generally answered in a straight-to-the-point way. Considering who her parents were, it was a little weird. Kushina was a chatterbox, and even Minato didn't sometimes shut up if he found a topic he was interested in. In that regard, their daughter certainly turned out to be different. Though, he personally didn't mind it. The less she asked, the better. After all, everything she could ask probably will lead to an uncomfortable situation. So the less, the better. Settling the glass down gently, he pulled a small packet out of his long sleeves. He placed it on the table and slid it towards her. Here, Narumi, your monthly allowance. With a concealed look of glee, she took the small packet in her hands. And smugly, she answered to the vixen. Why should I wait for it to lay eggs every day if I can just kill it and get all the gold within it instantly, you know? Her eyelids fluttered close at her container's response. Do you know what that tells me about you, Brad? What? That I am super smart? Or maybe I am super duper smart. Go ahead, furball, you can praise me. No need to be embarrassed about it. It's embarrassed, you dumb brat. The vixen inside her corrected her without even giving it two thoughts. Then, she laughed. And it was not a pleasant laugh. Not at all. And no. It doesn't tell me you're smart, quite the opposite actually, not that I need to be told that. Still, it tells me you're foolish, extremely so. But do you know what else it tells me about you? Her smugness had all but vaporized the moment the vixen had laughed. Now, she dreaded what the vixen was going to say. Still, ever the curious one, she dared to ask. What? That you're greedy. Extremely so, brat. But then again, a derisive gleam entered her slitted eyes. All of you pathetic fleshlings are greedy, so I can't fault you on that. It's just in your nature to never be satisfied with what you have. You meatbags are just flawed. So it's not your fault entirely. Not really. The packet in her hand started getting crushed by her sudden white-knuckled grip on it. What I have, her teeth gnashed against each other, is not enough. You saw it for yourself, furball. This much is not enough. I couldn't even. I wasn't talking about this, brat. I was talking about your nature in general. At your base, you're greedy. Accept it. It's a part of you. Don't run from it. If you continue to be in denial of it, you will never overcome it. You promised me that you will do something selfless, didn't you? I did. Then accept this part of you. If you know what is wrong with you, you will be able to overcome it. Who knows, you might even do something selfless one day and fulfill your promise. Besides, being greedy is not always a bad thing, you know. What? Her eyes widened. Boo, but you just made it sound so bad. How can it not be a bad thing? Because to achieve something, you have to be greedy. A passive approach gets you nowhere, brat. She stated in a matter-of-fact tone. You have to work for it. You have to crave it. You have to be greedy. As I said, it's not always a bad thing, but if you let it rule you, let it become the sole reason you exist, it will destroy you. There will be no coming back from that. Oh, like the chicken, brat, you let your greed overrule you and you destroyed your source of livelihood. That's what happens. You start doing irrational things when you let it rule you. Don't ever let greed rule you, brat. How do I know if I am letting greed rule me or not? Heh. The vixen snorted in amusement. Finally asking a good question, brat. Well, you will never ever know if you're letting it rule you or not. Then how? For better or worse, I am here, aren't I? I made a deal with you to help you, didn't I? So don't worry, brat, if you ever went on the path I consider wrong, I will pull you out of it probably. Pausing for a moment and going over how her words might be considered, the vixen hastened to add. Though don't think I will be doing that because I care for you, okay? Cause I do not care for you. Don't get any stupid ideas in that dumb head of yours, you idiotic brat. I get it. Narumi couldn't stop the smile coming on her face. Yup, for better or worse, she does have the huge vixen with her. Oh, by the way, furball, what does passive mean? A resigned sigh left her. I will tell you later, brat, you should stop crushing the money you got in hand first. Ah. My precious money. The chakra entity fell in depression inside her. This was the brat she was secretly hoping for. To do something selfless, that is. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Hiruzen always knew the girl in front of him had strong morals. But what he had just witnessed surprised even him. To think the poor girl would dislike receiving money from him. Unexpected, but a welcome surprise. He had observed how her facial expressions have changed the moment she had received the money from him. The barely concealed look of gratitude she had when she picked up the money, to the sudden look of anger at gazing at the packet in her hand. And finally, how she had resigned herself that she needed the money from him, for now, at least. It told him that the girl was independent. She didn't like receiving help from anyone. And, the most important of all, she wasn't greedy to just accept money without any second thought. A tinge of pride bloomed in his heart. Minato, Kushina, you both would be proud of your girl. His accurate observations aside, he still had to warn the girl. Don't spend the money carelessly, Narumi. Use it wisely. I can only set aside some money for you every month from my personal savings, okay? So be sure to use it wisely. The lie. It was her parents' life saving. All the money was hers. But he couldn't have that now, could he? He couldn't tell her that now, could he? He had to make the girl feel indebted to him. All part of his plan, of course. Would you look at that, brat? A shark-like grin came on the vixen's furry features. Another lie. Ahahaha. This pathetic fleshling never ceases to amuse me with his attempts at manipulating you. To think you surely would have become his loyal pet who would answer his calls every time if it wasn't for me. Aren't you grateful, brat? This was the reason she didn't like this old man. It was always, lies with him. Lies, 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 and more lies. Whenever she asked something, it was always more lies. Fucking liar. If it wasn't for the money he gave her, she wouldn't even tolerate him for more than 1 second. She hated this village, but more than that, she hated liars. And he was on top of that list. Right beside the fourth fucker. And worst of all. If it truly wasn't for the vixen inside her, she would have fallen for every lie of this old man. She would have become, as the vixen said, loyal pet for him. An uncomfortable shudder ran through her entire body at the thought of that. Yeah, I am, furball. Thank you. Ignoring the snort of amusement from the vixen inside, Narumi, being the skilled actor she was, faked a thin smile. Of course, Lord Hokage. I will be careful with it. Hiruzen smiled at her. Such a good kid she was. He would have loved to talk more to her, but he was here with a purpose. And, he was a busy man, all things considered. So he got to the point quickly. Good girl. Now for the other thing, do you remember all the stories about the Hokages, Narumi? Narumi blinked. What stories? The one he tried to tell you when you just kept talking to me. She wouldn't admit out loud, but even she was surprised the length the brat would go to ignore someone she didn't like. Part of her that she would never admit, never. Was proud of her, the other part was straight up amused by the brat's antics. If the vixen was one to pity, she would have cringed at the real reason where this ignorance of her came from. After all, when you're hated by the entire populace and everyone is just bad-mouthing or wishing you dead every time they see you, you tend to ignore them to remain sane. Narumi's ignorance wasn't born out of some pettiness, it was born out of a primal instinct to remain sane. Oh, that well, I don't have time to listen to liars, and, well, your stories are more interesting, furball. The vixen blinked. But all I tell you about is violence and war. I know. Narumi beamed. Violence is fun, you know. The vixen inside her blinked again. Once. Twice. Thrice. Then, she laughed. Bwahahaha. You're goddamn right, brat. Violence is fun. I knew, right? I so want to what is the name of the thing you used to destroy villages in the past with? The tailed beast bomb? The vixen supplied with a grin. Yes, that. I so want to use that on this village, you know. Narumi gushed like a rabid fangirl and heaved a dreamy sigh at imagining the result of that. Me too, brat, me too. The massive tailed beast also heaved a dreamy sigh at that. A vicious smirk came on her maw. Tell you what. When you get older, let's do that. Narumi absolutely went starry-eyed at that. Promise we can really do that. Heh. Of course, we can, brat. There are very few things that a being as mighty as I can't do. Destroying a village or two in seconds. PFFTTT, easy. Ooh. You're so awesome, you know. Heh. The vixen inside blew on her ground-tearing nails and rubbed them across her torso, smirking as they glinted. I know. Hiruzen chuckled watching the girl go starry-eyed. See, he was just that good. You liked them, didn't you, Narumi? A stray, dreamy giggle came past her lips. Haha, destroy the village. Hiruzen choked on his spit. What? The nine tails inside her swore. You fucking idiotic brat. Narumi realized her mistake and instantly sought to correct it. Rubbing her neck in a sheepish manner and forced a fake laugh. Ahaha, it was a prank, Lord Hokage. I got you, aha. Hiruzen blinked, then he also laughed. Of course, it was a prank. She was Kushina's girl, after all. Her strange sense of humor was something she probably inherited from her mother. Only Kushina was someone who could joke about something like this, and now, her daughter was also just the same. Oh, dear. Don't joke about something like this, Narumi. You nearly gave this old man a heart attack. He certainly felt like having one for some moments. Of course, Lord Hokage. I am sorry. Internally, she heaved a massive sigh of relief at him, surprisingly agreeing to the utter bullshit. Safe. I swear, brat, you're an idiot. The biggest one in history. The tailed beast covered her eyes with her paws and shook her head. The dumb brat nearly gave them away. I am so sorry. I got carried away. Parried, you dumb brat, and focus on what he is saying for now. I am pretty sure it's something interesting. The vixen had an inkling of what was coming, so she was very interested in it. Okay. Narumi focused back on the liar in front of him just as he asked her a very interesting thing. It's alright, Narumi, just don't joke about it again. Exhaling a breath, mentally steadying himself from the very Kushina-esque prank, Hiruzen continued. As I was saying, since you clearly like the Hokages so much, do you want to be like them, Narumi? Fuck no. Whatever she thought of it, she kept silent and simply looked at him with a tilt of her head. Taking her stoic silence as a sign of confusion, he explained what he came here for today. What I mean is, do you want to be a shinobi, Narumi? Eyes wide, Narumi looked at him bewildered. Her mask shattering for the second time in moments due to the suddenness of the question. Accepted, brat. Hearing the seriousness behind her tenant's voice, Narumi was positively baffled. Well, why? You said it yourself, didn't you? That no one will control us. Doesn't becoming a shinobi mean I will be under his command? I remember what I said, brat. The vixen grumbled. But don't think of it like that, think ahead, you dumb brat. You need power. I can give you my power, and by all means, that is more than enough of whatever you will ever need, but you will never be able to handle this much power if you're not trained. You need to be strong. A hint of reluctance came in the vixen's tone. And I don't know how to make you strong. I never mingled with your pathetic kind enough to know what you pathetic fleshlings did to make yourself strong. I know you fleshlings train, but in what, I don't know that. I never needed to train. I was born the strongest, and I will remain the strongest. But you need that. You need to train. Nobody can be like me, after all. So, accepted, brat. Narumi understood where the vixen was coming from. The vixen always knew how to explain it to her. But, still. Accepting it means working under him. Contrary to what you might think and what the vixen always said, she was smart. She ignored how the vixen laughed, and she knew, if she accepted this, she would not be able to have the little freedom she has now. She didn't want anyone taking advantage of her. Then just don't think of it like that, you dumb brat. Think of it like you taking advantage of him. Just learn what you can and then, let's get the hell out of here. Accepted, brat. This is totally in our favor. Narumi understood it. But, she still had a question. You aren't making me do this because you want something, do you? No. The tailed beast inside her averted her eyes. She was not doing this so she could get some amusement out of watching the brat struggle in the academy. Nope. Not at all. Ha. I knew it. You want to see me struggle. You enjoy watching me struggle. She cursed herself that the brat already knew her this well. Well, the fox was out of the box, might as well come clean. Yes, I enjoy watching you struggle. I love it when you cry. I especially love it when you're in pain. What are you gonna do, brat? You're terrible. I hate you. The vixen laughed. It's terrible and the feeling's mutual, brat. Her laughter ceased and she got serious again. Now, accept it. Fine. I will accept it. Her shoulders slumped. Resigning herself to the vixen's choices. Try as much as she wanted to, she couldn't deny what the vixen had said. She was always right, after all. Fuck. She hated it. Again, she ignored the smug laugh of the tailed beast inside her. Hiruzen patiently sat there, knowing the girl needed some time to actually come to terms that she was being offered a chance to become a proud shinobi of the village. He saw how her shoulders slump, probably thinking she might disappoint him if she didn't do well. Well, he couldn't have that now, could he? Don't worry, Narumi, you just had to do your best. Don't worry about any expectations. Narumi just looked at the liar. What is he saying? I don't know, must be something to do with old age, maybe. The vixen shrugged helplessly. Right. Narumi nodded outwardly to the vixen, didn't even deigning Hiruzen with a reply. Hiruzen smiled, taking her nod as a sign of understanding. He was content to not make the girl feel any extra pressure, for now, at least. What is your answer, Narumi? Do you want to become a shinobi then? Resigning herself that she needed this, she reluctantly nodded. I want to be a shinobi, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen shook his head. Such a lovely girl, to think she would be so reluctant to accept just because she didn't want to disappoint him in the future. It almost made his Hokage persona feel bad for all the things he had done to this girl. Almost. Pulling a scroll out of his sleeve, he placed it on the table and rolled it open. Placing his palm at the center, he channeled his chakra in the seal. A short puff of smoke accompanied the items within. Narumi couldn't stop herself from cringing at the contents revealed to her. Books. There were just so many books. Just looking at them was making her feel dizzy. There was also a set of shuriken and kunai for her to practice with. Well, that was nice. She liked that. But it still didn't compensate for so many books. Why are you getting so worked over this, brat? It's not like you can read them. Ha. That's right. Take that, you filthy piece of papers, I can't read you. Narumi gloated. She fucking gloated over being illiterate. Why? 'Cause she can. Take it, suckers. Is that something you should gloat about? You're illiterate, you know. It's not something to be proud of. This time, the Vixen Insider was the actual voice of reason, instead of being the twisted voice of reason she generally was. Well, you're illiterate and you're proud of it. Why can't I be proud of it? Heh. Touché, brat. Narumi's face scrunched up in confusion. What does that mean? The entity of chakra groaned. Later, brat. The manipulating meatbag is saying something, focus on that. Okay. Hiruzen chuckled at seeing her facial expressions change the moment the books were revealed to her. Like many kids, she also hated reading, it would seem. Seeing her getting confused after the shock wore off, he correctly guessed what it was and explained it to her. These, Narumi, he gestured to the books with a hand, are all the books you would need for your first year of the academy. And these, he pointed towards the set of kunai and shuriken. You will use them for training. Though, be careful with them. They are very sharp. Understand? Both of them rolled their eyes in sync at that, though Narumi was very discreet about that. Did he actually think of her being that dumb? He felt the need to tell her that. Actually, shut up. I don't want to hear it. The Vixen snickered insider and Narumi huffed. Taking her silence as acceptance, as usual, Hiruzen continued. The academy will start back up in 1 week after the break is over, so try to go through the material once before you join it, alright. Narumi nodded stoically. Not that she could say something else to that, books were useless to her, after all. Not that he needed to know that. She refused to show weakness in front of anyone except the Vixen Insider. Even then, it was not by a choice, she just couldn't hide anything from the Vixen. Oh my, thank you for placing so much trust in me, brat. Really, I am flattered. The Vixen drawled sarcastically. Hush furball, I am busy. Narumi rolled her eyes. The chakra entity always had a comeback for everything. Oh, by the way, what does flattered mean? Ugh. Later, brat. Narumi willed herself not to pout. With his task done, Hiruzen stood up from his chair. Looking down at her, he gave her his patented grandfatherly smile. I must be going now, Narumi. I have lots of work to do, after all. I do hope one day you will be the one to relieve me from it. Do your thing, brat. An amused smirk came on her furry features. Narumi rolled her eyes inwardly. Outwardly, she nodded and gave him a thin smile. Of course, Lord Hokage, I will do my best. Oh, I know you will, Narumi. Hiruzen chuckled. See? Everyone always came around. No one ever realized they were being manipulated. He was just that good. After all, he had learned from the best, his sensei, Tobirama Senju. Inside Narumi, the mighty Nine Tails also laughed, but unlike Hiruzen's, hers was deep, bellowing laughter filled with utter malice. Laugh all you want for now, you pathetic flesh bag, but soon you will be crying when we burn this village to the ground. And, her black lips peeled back and a grin that promised death and destruction came on her furry face. We will start with those annoying Uchihas first. Fucking pests. Narumi remained silent. Nor reacting to her inner vixen's ramble or to the old liar's words. Hiruzen glanced out of the window near them and looked back down at Narumi. I will be going now, Narumi. Take care and don't spend your money recklessly, okay? Oh, and don't worry about the academy's fees, I will be personally paying it. Another white lie. The fees will be paid from her parents' accounts, but again, she didn't need to know that. Just more gratitude towards him on her part. All for the sake of earning her loyalty, of course. The Vixen inside rolled her eyes. Would he ever stop with his bullshit? My expectations were nothing for him, but holy shit. Narumi hoped she managed to contain the disgust in her tone. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen looked at the girl sadly. To think she would be so hard on herself. Being disgusted with herself for accepting money for him. He closed his eyes and sighed. Oh, well. She was already this independent, that would surely help her in the future. But that line of thought, Hiruzen gave her his grandfatherly smile. It's okay, Narumi, just take care of yourself. I will visit you again as soon as I will be free. Do your best in the academy, don't slack off, alright. Narumi nodded stoically, wishing for him to get out of her house as soon as possible. Thankfully for her, he decided to do just that and started walking towards the door. Opening it, he turned and smiled down at her. Take care, Narumi. Narumi internally rolled her eyes but still decided to respond this time. Giving him a faint smile, she nodded. You too, Lord Hokage. Flashing her another smile, Hiruzen stepped out of the house and closed the door behind him. Narumi slumped down against the door the moment he stepped out. Relief and exhaustion washing over her. Putting an act in front of him always tired her out. More so than putting an act in front of the villagers. As ever, you were great in your acting, brat. The amused voice of the Vixen rang in her head. I am tired, I don't want to see his face for at least a month. Narumi groaned from her slumped position. The tailed beast inside her laughed. Me too, brat. Her stomach growled and she clutched it with her hand. Hungry, I am so hungry. Well, you got the money now, might as well use it. The chakra entity shrugged. Though, you might want to change how you spend it, be a little more careful so you won't run out near the end of the month. I know. With the support of the door, Narumi stood up and her eyes fell on the books on the table, she winced. This is going to be a pain, you know. The tailed beast inside her laughed at her container's plight. Narumi scowled. I hate you. Feelings mutual brat. A vulpine grin crossed the vixen's features. Narumi huffed and started preparing to go out to get some food. A single hopeful thought passed her mind as she exited her house while thinking about the academy. I might meet him again there. The thought was enough to bring a small smile on her face as she went about her day. Remaining blissfully unaware of all the suffering that awaited her before she will finally be able to get some semblance of happiness if she made it past her sufferings first without giving up, that is. What if Naruto has Minato inheritance unlocked by Kurama? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.